That night, outside the ancient castle of the Asek Min family, a sudden storm howled fiercely as if it wanted to tear apart the night hidden deep within the earth of this magnificent structure. It was a secret passage, always lit up, leading to an isolated room, a true hell on earth from that place. The heart-rending cries echoed, tearing at the hearts of those who heard them in the room thick with the stench of blood where a young boy was imprisoned, his body covered in wounds. The corners of his mouth bled so badly that it was hard to recognize him as Ryan, the young master of this prestigious family. Beside him, a red-hot iron was glowing, radiating intense heat as the torturer Sans tightly grabbed Ryan's hair, yanking his head back and leaning in close. "You locked him up here, huh?" he sneered, his eyes gleaming with cruelty and madness as he continued. "You're quite interesting, aren't you? Your family's lineage was born with every kind of talent." After Ryan clenched his teeth in silence, Sans, seeing his attitude, became even more excited. He loudly mocked, his tone dripping with sarcasm about the so-called blessing of the family. Without hesitation, Sans pressed the glowing iron hard against Ryan's skin, the sizzling sound of burning flesh rising alongside Ryan's agonized screams. Fresh blood spewed from his mouth, staining the cold stone floor, and watching the victim writhe, Sans displayed utter delight, tilting his head as he cruelly remarked, "And you're cursed. You have no talent at all, yet your life clings on like a leech." The pain exceeded his limits, causing Ryan's will to crumble. He weakly tried to plead for a release. Sans raised an eyebrow, letting out a sound full of confusion. Ryan lifted his cloudy eyes to look at his enemy hesitatingly, saying, "Just kill me." Hearing the plea for death, Sans threw his head back and laughed loudly, smugly, responding with disdain. "I don't understand what you're saying. I should have cut out your tongue instead." Sans turned away, walking off while joking as if this were just a game. "I thought I could get something from the SEK Min bloodline, but I'm starting to get bored." Before the prison door closed, he turned his head, emphasizing each word with deep meaning. "So don't die today. Because of our bloodline, not for me." The door slammed shut, leaving Ryan in darkness and despair. He had said that the SEK Min family had been wiped out. Today marked the 3-year anniversary of their demise. Hearing those words, Ryan bowed his head to the ground in despair, pounding his fists against the cold stone floor. The cold wind from the window crept in, carrying the breath of loneliness as Ryan sat there drowning in utter sorrow. The image of Sans's arrogant face flashed in his mind, and he bitterly murmured, "Has it really been 3 years?" The SEK Min family had once been a stronghold standing on the front lines to protect the continent from the monstrous beasts of the Dark Lands. Among the 5 great families, Sekmin was the greatest and most powerful name. But cruel fate struck when his father and brothers suddenly disappeared. The family quickly fell into decline, and the phantom vultures did not miss the opportunity. They pounced, tearing apart and trampling Sekmin, craving the blessing of the bloodline, for a direct descendant of that lineage could become a great mage. At just 10 years old, he touched the threshold of the Holy Sword at 15, but Ryan did not. He was cursed by the demon king Aken, a calamity that appeared once every few centuries. Because of it, he became a cripple, unable to practice swordsmanship or magic. If it weren't for that curse, if he had strength, the family wouldn't have been trampled by the phantom, and he wouldn't have to endure the brutal experiments of that Sans. No. Now even regret left him exhausted. Ryan sensed death approaching, thinking today would be the day he would be freed. He closed his eyes, letting the tears flow freely, but memories played back like a slow-motion film the first time he faced a monster, blood-soaked, standing proudly over the corpses of his enemies. A youthful face, yet strangely calm, then the scene of him fighting alone against a giant tiger, confidence radiating from his face despite his young age, even when Sans's army came crashing in. Witnessing the massacre of his family, Ryan bravely took up his sword to fight, but the harsh reality crushed his resistance. Sans, with a haughty expression, conjured up a spell. A black hole swallowed everything as it struck Ryan down. He bent down and said, "I will grant you a wish." But in that final moment, as Ryan reached out to grasp him, Sans soared high into the air. Suddenly, Ryan opened his eyes, hearing frantic calls in his ears. "Young master, young master!" His vision was still blurry, but he vaguely recognized the person in front of him as Miss Lin. She was anxiously calling for him. Huyen had completely regained consciousness. Colin Ryan sprang up, trying to collect himself, his voice still tinged with confusion. "Colin?" The nurse immediately scolded him loudly. Yet her tone was filled with concern. "Your health has always been weak, and now you're overworking yourself. What should we do?" Ryan stared intently at Colin while she looked at him with a puzzled expression. This was indeed Colin, the nurse of the Shichmin family, but why was she here? And why did she look so much younger than he remembered? A shiver ran down his spine, and he immediately ordered, "Colin, bring me a mirror." Surprised by the sudden request, she still complied. "Why do you suddenly want a mirror?" When the mirror was brought to him, Ryan was stunned. The reflection was not of a broken prisoner, but of a young boy. He turned to ask urgently, "Miss Lin, what date is it today?" "Oh my," she gasped, touching his forehead. "Goodness, young master, what's wrong? Today is the 17th of 1892, according to the calendar." Ryan, counting in his head, shouted in astonishment, 1892. This is clearly when I was just 12 years old before the Shichmin family fell into the tragic doom brought by Phantom. Sans's words from years ago echoed in his mind, "I will grant you a wish." Ryan wondered to himself, is my heart racing back to that moment? His thoughts were interrupted when the door swung open. A middle-aged man with a commanding presence entered Alejandro, the captain of the Sickman Knights. He looked at Ryan, thinking to himself that he had expected the young master to be feigning illness and refusing to get up. He squinted, observing Ryan's complexion, then said, "It seems you really are unwell. Can you take a break from training today?" Colin, hearing this, immediately shouted, "I already told you." Before she could finish her sentence, Ryan interjected firmly, "No." Colin glanced at him, feeling embarrassed. Alejandro stared intently at his young master without blinking, and Ryan stepped down from the bed, declaring loudly, "I'm fine." This unusual attitude made Alejandro suspicious. The lazy young master was now given a break and refused. He straightforwardly replied, "Today is the swordsmanship training," and with a curious expression, he asked a loaded question. "But are you really the young master?" Ryan walked over to the weapon rack, picked up a wooden sword, and replied decisively, "Yes, I am Ryan Smith. No mistake about it." Meanwhile, Alejandro was still in shock. Yet inside, Ryan was boiling with the thought of a wish to turn back time. Who cares? He coldly ordered, "Forget about training. We're going monster hunting." For Ryan, this was not just practice. It was an opportunity to change his cruel fate. An opportunity to correct all the mistakes of the past. That morning at the training ground of the Sekman Castle, a light blue status board appeared before Ryan. Ryan, Sekman Level 1, Strength 7, Agility 5, Stamina 3, Magic 0, Curse Icon SS. The words Curse of the Demon King Aken struck his eyes because of it. He could not accumulate magic power and would be paralyzed when facing monsters. Ryan looked at the status board, thinking to himself that even though he had returned to the past, it was still usable. How fortunate this was, a unique ability that no one on the Dre continent possessed at this time. Hearing Alejandro's call, he quickly turned off the status board. "Young master, the monster is ready." Both moved to the center of the training ground where a goblin was tightly bound, its mouth gagged, screaming wildly. It struggled even more fiercely when it saw Ryan pointing the wooden sword at it. The iron chains rattled loudly, echoing in the air. Today, Alejandro stood calmly with his arms crossed, completely contrasting with Miss Lin, who was sweating profusely and pleading with the knight captain, "Please, sir, do something to stop this." Seeing him silent, she continued to plead. The young knight only needed to face a little bit of pressure to faint, but Ryan clearly heard every word. He silently admitted she was right. That was him from yesterday. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath to calm himself. When he opened his eyes, his gaze had turned icy, but now he knew immediately that a bright red warning was flashing. The system warning for the Archon curse was activating, amplifying the fear of monsters. Ryan gritted his teeth. The fear of monsters turned out to be part of the Archon curse. Seeing Ryan standing still, Alejandro sighed in disappointment, deciding to end today's training. This was enough. But Ryan immediately protested, "No, this isn't enough." Just as he finished speaking, he charged straight at the goblin. Seeing the enemy approach, it bared its fangs and prepared to attack. Its fierce face made Ryan hesitate for a moment. Primal fear surged within him, but he quickly steadied himself, calming down. "I am no longer the Ryan of the past. My opponent is a goblin, and I can handle it compared to the threat from that sands. This place is nothing in Ryan's eyes right now." The image of the goblin overlapped with Sans's face. The hatred that had built up over the years erupted, sweeping away his fear. He shouted in his mind as if at this very moment, the person in front of him was not a goblin, but him. Ryan raised his wooden sword high, and in the next moment he struck straight at the monster's head with all his might. The impact was so strong that Alejandro's eyes widened in shock while Colin's face turned pale as a ghost. You have surpassed the Archon curse. You need to thank your experience for pushing beyond your limits. The level of the Archon curse has decreased. You no longer feel fear of the monster. The goblin struck on the head shrank back into a corner, trembling in fear. Ryan looked at it with fiery eyes and then turned to give orders. Knight Commander, give me the real sword. His words made Colin feel like his soul was leaving his body. Alejandro drew the sword from his hip and handed it to him, but not without asking. Are you really okay? Rian flashed a bright smile in response. Alejandro looked at him, murmuring in admiration. The young master has finally become a man today. Holding the real sword in his hand, Ryan's killing intent radiated, causing the goblin to bare its teeth threateningly, but it was useless this time. With just a moment's hesitation, Ryan swung the sword decisively, finishing off the target. Fresh blood splattered, staining the ground red. Alejandro secretly rejoiced. The Min family, which had been swaying, finally saw the light. He turned to Lin, filled with pride. Look closely, that figure is truly the next heir of the Min family. Back in his room, Ryan splashed cold water on his face to wash away the blood. Looking at his reflection in the mirror, he silently assessed that the status window and system support were both functioning very well. He had overcome the Aachen curse and proved that he could grow stronger. He opened the status panel again. The experience line showed an increase, but Ryan was still not satisfied. It's too little. If I want to level up by hunting goblins, I would have to kill thousands, tens of thousands, which takes time. I can't wait for anyone. The sound of steel is sorrowful, and the SEK Min family is drawing near. I need a faster method. Rian remembered the only person who could help him right now, Senna. Not long after Senna, the head of the mage division of the family, entered the room. As soon as she arrived, she spoke with a hint of reproach in her tone. I've heard about the young master hunting goblins, but still, the reason you called me here is to learn magic, right? This morning, Ryan observed the woman in front of him, Senna, one of the few great mages of the continent whose mysterious background was only second to his father's in terms of power. Seeing him silent, she continued to scold him. You just killed one goblin and you're already feeling self-satisfied. Training in magic is completely different from swordsmanship. From the start, the young master had no talent, which is why you weren't trained. Have you forgotten? Ryan looked straight into her eyes, silently replying, Of course I remember. The Aachen curse took away all my talents. I can't sense magical power, but that was yesterday. He decided to lay his cards on the table. What if I say I can sense magical power? Senna looked at the incompetent young master in disbelief as she dipped her finger into the teacup. Using water, she drew a magical circle around Chung, and in an instant the image of a brilliant red dragon appeared as if it were invisible to ordinary people. Now you can open your eyes. I drew a picture that can only be seen with magical power right in front of the young master. As Ryan opened his eyes, Senna eagerly asked, If what you said is true, tell me what I drew. Without hesitation, Ryan replied, A beautiful red dragon. Senna was stunned and asked back, Did I guess wrong? She felt flustered, her pride shaken. No, it wasn't. At this point, she had to admit that he had indeed changed since yesterday. But how? I even set up a mechanism to change its form. If you don't understand magical power at my level. Joy welled up in her heart for the family, the curse of the family. How did you manage to overcome it? Even though I taught you how to sense magical power. Ryan interrupted her, his voice urgent. Senna, I can sense magical power, but I can't use the family's magical training method. So I need your help. Senna was surprised, but she understood the issue. Magical power needed a vessel, a mana heart. Without the family's training method, there was only a dangerous and heretical way left. She sighed seriously, warning him, So you've tried it already. But do you know what your words mean? My support for training magical power means I have to tear open the young master's body to channel the magical power in putting both your life and mine at risk. Ryan paused for a moment, then casually asked, Are you planning to kill me? The naive question angered Senna. The young master, Ryan, interrupted her, his tone indifferent. Anyway, my body right now can't resist you. He remembered his past life when their family was ambushed. Senna was the one who fought until her last breath, even when her magical power was depleted and her body was nearly collapsing. She still protected him until the end. With absolute trust, Ryan knelt before her. Senna, I trust you more than anyone. Senna sighed, resigned to his determination. Then let's begin. She observed his frail body, wondering how he could use the magical training method of the Lamb family, which was only passed down to direct descendants. She had only heard the theory. Can the young master really use it to channel magical power? Yes! Ryan was also concentrating hard. You will use the lamb training method from the game Adrian to forcibly level up. Please focus, Senna reminded him. Ah, yes, Ryan replied, startled. It will hurt a lot. You mustn't make a sound or struggle. If it becomes unbearable, you have to seriously consider stopping. It hurts, right? It hurts. Ryan chuckled softly to himself. Compared to the tortures in San's dungeon, this was nothing. The images of enemies and humiliation made him grit his teeth, anger overwhelming his fear. He shouted, I said I trust you. Senna softly replied, I understand. The process began. A massive surge of magical power from Senna shot straight into Ryan's body, tearing through the blood vessels to clear a path painfully as if he were being carved up. Curse A needs to be activated. The magical power in his body dispersed. Senna was astonished to see her magical power being repelled. Curse A needs to be activated, just as the head of the family had said, but I will inject more magical power. A system message for activating Curse A appeared repeatedly visible only to Ryan as two streams of power turned his body into a battlefield. Ryan realized that Senna's magical power couldn't overcome this high-level curse. But he had a plan. Once the magical power was dispersed, he just needed to lock the entire area inside his body, and then he could trick the curse into thinking the magical power was still within him. Senna panicked as the young master discovered something unusual. The magical power was dissipating but not escaping his body. The resistance system against the curse needed to be activated successfully. His body felt like it was on fire, the flow of magic inside him burning intensely, but how could he lose? This kind of pain he had experienced thousands of times before. With the experience of a master player, he controlled the chaotic flow of magic, forcing it to obey the arcane, even though he had never seen that demon lord's face. But the arcane curse from someone who wasn't even a god was too much for Adrian. Ryan's agonized screams echoed throughout the room as the magic fully merged. He collapsed unconscious as Senna's frantic voice called out to him in his daze. Memories of his past life resurfaced. The cold voice of Sans rang out, ordering to capture a brat and bring him back as a test subject. Indeed, mistakes must be discarded eventually. Then the scene of Alejandro bursting into the dungeon to save him, shielding him with his own body from a blow and dying in his arms. Ryan's desperate cries from the past mingled with tears in the present. He opened his eyes to find himself lying on the bed, warm sunlight streaming in. Wiping his tears, he reassured himself that the alchemy had succeeded, even though it succeeded. The painful memories prevented him from feeling joy, but now he had the power to change it. Ryan sat up, ruffling his hair and tugging at his ears, looking at Senna and Alejandro, who were waiting by his bedside. He decided to lie to protect the secret of the failed magical training. Senna turned back, her eyes filled with disbelief, while Alejandro also exclaimed, leaving the room in silence. Ryan felt guilty, but he couldn't reveal his power at that moment, especially in front of the phantom family who had too many expectations of him. So he tried, but now he couldn't feel a trace of magic at all, smoothly uttering lies. Senna wouldn't accept it. She stepped forward, saying she could check. Ryan extended his hand, asking her to cast a spell to test. A beam of light appeared, but she felt nothing at all. She exclaimed, "No way!" But Ryan just smiled. Senna let go, asserting loudly that it had truly disappeared. Yesterday the mana was clearly there. Shocked, she muttered, "No way," then ran out. Alejandro looked on in confusion before turning to comfort his master, saying not to be too disappointed. After all, he had hunted a monster. "If I focus on swordsmanship," Ryan hurriedly cut in, continuing to play the role of the weakling. "Actually, I can't do it a second time. After that, even eating became difficult. Surely you heard what Lynn said, right?" Mentioning Colin made Alejandro's face darken, cold sweat breaking out. Time flew by. 2 months passed. The SEK Min Castle was covered in white snow. Lynn approached the private room as usual, filled with worry upon seeing her master locked away in his room all this time. The family was in turmoil. Only the lady was shouldering everything, and it seemed she was reaching her limit too. Just then, DM approached with a scrutinizing tone. "Isn't the young master coming out of his room today?" She maintained a calm expression, replying tersely, "Yes." DM smirked, deliberately raising her voice so that everyone around could hear her unpleasant words. "It's been 3 months. Since the incident of defeating the monster in the training yard, that young master had returned to being so useless that even the knight captain's words fell on deaf ears. Alina, standing beside her, chimed in, "People often say that those who suddenly change their temperament are a sign of death. In the end, that brilliance was just a dream. It was just a fleeting moment after all. Hearing those sharp words, Lin angrily shouted, "That's not true. That day the young master just wanted to meet everyone's expectations." DM immediately brought up the ominous signs of the family's doom to counter her. Her tone was filled with pessimism, not only within the family, but rumors about the wasteful heir of the SEK Min house had spread throughout the kingdom. Lin felt indignant on behalf of her master. Is it too cruel for a boy who's only 12 years old? Dien coldly met his gaze, expecting that the more hope there was, the greater the disappointment, especially for a noble family in decline. It was even more so. Alina nodded in agreement, siding with Dien. The situation had become so dire that the servants were resigning one after another. Taking this opportunity, Dien bluntly stated his intention, "I will also resign after this month." He turned to her and pressed, "What about you, Aunt Lin?" She bowed her head in silence, but in her heart she silently called the name of the one she pledged her loyalty to her young master. Meanwhile, in his private room, Ryan was having a meal, tasting the food and immediately spitting it out. The corners of his mouth lifted in a self-deprecating smile. The quality of the food had plummeted, which meant the family's finances were running dry just as the script had foretold. If Ryan were the naive boy from the past, he would have surely poured all his remaining assets into saving the situation in vain, but now, with the experience of a seasoned player like Adrian, he was completely different. He chose to quietly wait, lulling the enemy into complacency, only to strike when the knife was at their throat and gut them. They were not far from decline, starting from the moment the head of the family went missing. His brothers and elite mages set out to search and never returned. Now the Sichmin family lacked both manpower and financial resources to continue this futile search. The training grounds, once filled with cheers, now only had a few knights left. Weak and the lackluster servants, those who once wanted to be close to the heir, turned their backs and left upon seeing this chaos. Once looking back, Ryan thought to himself, "With so much going on, I still have the time to pretend to be lazy in my room at night." However, the speed of decline was slower than he had calculated. Indeed, a thin camel is still bigger than a rich horse. Even in collapse, it must last through 3 generations. Ryan reminded himself that starting tomorrow he needed to speed up the pace even more while lying on the bed. While contemplating his next move, Colin rushed in, interrupting his thoughts. "Young master, it's time for training. The captain is waiting for you. Let's go." He frowned, turning his face away, pulling the blanket tightly around himself, and replied lazily, "I'm taking a break today." This attitude infuriated Colin, who didn't hesitate to rush over and snatch the blanket away. Seeing her strong hands approaching him, Ryan was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Before he could react, she lifted him up like a child. He called her name in panic, Colin. Ryan's body had become much heavier due to his training, making it hard for Colin to hold him up without gritting her teeth. Nevertheless, her gaze remained unusually determined. "I absolutely will not leave the Sichmin house." Just as she finished speaking, Colin carried him straight over her shoulder. Ryan couldn't help but laugh inwardly. It was really something. A moment later, at the training ground, seeing him holding the sword in a ridiculous stance, Alejandro shouted angrily, "How many times has the young master said not to hold the sword like that?" Despite his failures, once he felt the magic, it was easy to sense it again. The swordsmanship he learned only required him to swing the sword, and the magic would flow into him. He knew the captain. Feeling utterly disappointed, Ryan could only purse his lips and silently remind himself that he hadn't given up either. That night, when he returned to his room, he practiced secretly while thinking. He wanted to repay their loyalty and enthusiasm, but he absolutely could not let them know that he was using the body control skill to secretly train all night. The body control assassination skill allowed him to conceal his true physical condition, and it was currently activated in a way to fool everyone. An experience system increased his strength by 1, and he received a notification. Ryan suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Oh no! Just a moment of negligence could lead to being discovered. He recalled that morning when he couldn't maintain his disguise under Alejandro's pressure and had to make up an excuse to escape. "I need to use the restroom for a bit," he said, ignoring the helpless call of his master. A few minutes later, after checking the magic again, Ryan frowned, realizing the instability. Indeed, this body was still not strong enough to maintain the skill. Continuously, any sudden movement caused the control of body control to collapse. He quickly opened the status window to check his progress. Ryan Sickman, level 3. Strength 17, agility 10, stamina 14. Magic 14. Curse A, required rank B. After reading this, he felt as happy as if he had just won a prize. Everything was going very smoothly. 3 months of secret training had yielded positive results. When all stats exceed 20, the actual leveling up process will begin. The first goal is to acquire the hidden profession like in the game, then both necromancer and assassin must be raised to the highest rank. The next day, as Ryan stepped out into the hallway, he accidentally saw Alejandro talking to a stranger and wondered what Alejandro and the guest were discussing. When he got a clear look at the stranger's face, he was surprised and silently called out the name of the steward of the Min family, the creditor Hilda, who quickly noticed Rian's presence and bowed to him, apologizing for interrupting his training. Saying that the creditor respectfully presented a tightly sealed scroll, and Ryan immediately understood the situation. Even though the timeline had shifted a bit, it was the right moment. He was definitely here to deliver that fateful letter. Alejandro stepped closer, his voice dropping, "Is it time already?" Ryan then opened the scroll, his eyes quickly scanning its contents. It was an invitation to the birthday party of the 2 princes of the Diran Cateron Kingdom on December 12, 1892, according to the Dre calendar. That day, the final piece in the plan to destroy the Min family would be completed. Early on the day of departure, the carriage rolled out of the estate. Since they had to leave at dawn, Ryan had dozed off the entire journey. When he stirred awake, the creditor kindly asked, "You've woken up, sir. You've been sleeping soundly since we set off." Ryan rubbed his eyes playfully, blaming Colin for staying up late the night before to help him dress. He recalled the horrifying scene from last night when Colin personally picked out the flashy outfits and mumbled about which ones were suitable for him to wear. Ryan sighed and told the creditor to advise her not to follow along. It would be quite difficult. The creditor nodded in understanding. "I get it. Neither Alejandro nor Miss Senna can accompany you today." Rian silently agreed. He never expected that at this moment. A large horde of monsters would appear truly a perfect timing that seemed suspicious. The main role of the Sekman family was to guard the borders, preventing monsters from the dark regions from invading the Dre continent. Alejandro had been urgently dispatched there, while Senna was summoned back to her maternal home to handle some business and unavoidable summons due to that coincidence. And a 12-year-old kid like him became the only representative of the family to enter the royal capital. Seeing the young master deep in thought, the creditor reassured him. "You don't need to worry. In the Diaran kingdom, no one dares to touch the main line of the Min family." But those words only made Ryan more anxious. If it were the Min family of old, with their renowned prestige indeed, no one would dare to touch them during royal events like this. Just sending a servant to represent them would have sufficed, but now the family had declined to the point where the heir himself had to personally attend the birthday party of a prince, and ironically, the one who created this miserable situation was him. The creditor pulled back the window curtain and looked outside, then announced, "I see it now, the royal capital of Daran Debon." Soon after, the procession entered the bustling city gates of the palace. The 2 princes and their entourage were already waiting. Ryan stepped down from the carriage, greeted by a warm smile from Kai, but his gaze was scrutinizing as he welcomed Ryan to Daran. The person in front of Ryan was indeed Kai Diran, the ambitious second prince. The creditor and Ryan both bowed their heads in respect, feeling honored to be invited by His Highness Kai. "Thank you for the warm welcome from the kingdom." However, this greeting made Ryan feel a sense of irony. After that, Ryan secretly activated his magic perception from the city gate to the palace. He clearly sensed the scrutinizing gazes of the townspeople focused on the carriage, their pitying looks directed at a family on the brink of collapse. It seemed the rumors about him had spread quite effectively. Whispers and murmurs arose incessantly. "That's Ryan Sickman, the family destroyer, in those rumors. Wasn't the downfall of the Sickman family real?" Then Ryan glanced at the noble faces around him, hidden behind the dazzling ceremonial masks, revealing nothing but mockery and contempt. Everything was unfolding just as planned. "Today is truly a beautiful day. I don't want to ruin the play." Ryan pretended to be shy and timidly replied to the prince's greeting, "Hello," seeing that awkward demeanor. The creditor was so embarrassed that he covered his face. The townsfolk saw that Daran's dragon was just a shy, clumsy boy and smiled mockingly but secretly felt satisfied. "Should we continue playing to this rhythm?" 5 days later at the dining hall for the escort soldiers, the priest started grumbling, tapping a rhythm on the table. "We arrived at the palace a week before the birthday party to escort the young master right." But Philip, while munching on a chicken leg, replied, "That's right. It's been 5 days since the young master entered the city." Ethan sighed, realizing the issue was that coming early was to mingle with other groups in the kingdom, so lower your expectations. When we arrived at the palace, didn't you notice? Although the young master is shy around strangers in front of nobles, he couldn't even manage a greeting. Suddenly, the priest collapsed onto the table, crying like a child, and yelled since the moment he entered the room assigned to him, he hasn't stepped out even once. It's been 5 days now. Inside the palace, the event before the birthday was in full swing, delicious food, wine, and women. Seeing his comrades suffering from missing the fun, Philip laughed and said everyone was complaining. That's why I told my brother to persuade the young master. Before he could finish his sentence, Liam rushed in, his face beaming. Captain, he relayed exactly what Ryan said. Today I will attend the banquet. I hope you all prepare, Liam stammered, confirming what the young master said. Ethan and Philip cheered, high-fiving each other, then shouted in unison, Great! Liam quickly added Ryan's instructions, but he said to keep it a secret before appearing. Even from the steward, the creditor hesitated a bit, but the escort needed preparation and reporting. However, the craving for a party had blown away all the rules. The priest chuckled. It's fine, it's fine. Philip chimed in. As long as we get to attend the party, that's enough. After discussing the plan to skip work for the party, the three immediately dashed off to prepare in a hidden corner. Ryan had taken in all their actions. This way, the soldiers would be less disgruntled and a bit more loyal. Over the past few days, he had also taken the opportunity to practice comfortably in his room without being disturbed. But attending the party wasn't just to win over the escort soldiers. He had a bigger goal, a big fish to catch, and Ryan guessed it right. Today, the Phantom family's carriage would arrive. Today, he would come. The arrogant face of San's Phantom flashed in his mind again, and Ryan's gaze turned sharp, filled with intensity. That afternoon, in the palace's grand hall, amidst the lively atmosphere, an announcement rang out loudly, Young Master San's Phantom enters. The large doors slowly opened. Sans strode in confidently, followed by a large entourage exuding the arrogance of a superior. As his gaze swept through the crowd and landed on the creditor, he raised an eyebrow in surprise. The creditor quickly turned his face away, trying to avoid the scrutinizing gaze of the young master. But Sans was not one to let him off easily. He approached with a teasing tone. Isn't this the steward Hilda? The creditor had to turn back politely, bowing in response. Young Master Sans Phantom has come in person. Your Highness must be very surprised. Sans smirked and casually asked about the main character. I heard the Sickman family arrived earlier, but where is the famous Ryan Sickman? The emphasis on famous was laced with sarcasm like a dagger poking at the pride of the person opposite him. The creditor was so angry that he clenched his lips, trying to suppress his frustration. Seeing the other party silent, Sans continued to provoke. What do you mean by famous? Haven't you all heard? The story of the ominous prophecy of Seokmin, where the creditor looked at him and silently cursed him truly, is Sans a 15-year-old wizard with 5 circles expected by his family, so the arrogance has seeped into his blood. But to dare insult Seokmin right at the banquet of the Duren kingdom, which used to be Seokmin's home ground, was indeed reckless. Meanwhile, the creditor clenched his fists until they turned white from the mockery. Then Sans suddenly changed his attitude, pretending to be innocent. Of course that couldn't be real. I also think we need to find out who spread those ridiculous rumors and punish them for tarnishing the honor of the noble family. The creditor was sweating cold, muttering in his head, filled with resentment. A person who drank alcohol since the age of 7 and killed the people of his own territory at 12, the biggest troublemaker in the entire realm, like you dares to speak of morals. Just as the tension escalated, an announcement cut through the suffocating atmosphere. The Dragon of Dre, young master Rian Shikman of the Shikman family is entering. All eyes turned to the door, seeing Ryan walk in. Sans felt a moment of worry, and at the same time the creditor displayed an incredulous expression, shouting in his heart about someone who had been holed up in a room all day. Why is he appearing now? Then Ryan appeared, looking neat and confident, completely different from the rumors casually walking towards Sans, while the crowd began to whisper entirely contrary to the rumors. With such a majestic appearance, what kind of doom is that? Indeed, the blood of the Shikman cannot be mistaken. Seeing everyone start to turn and praise Ryan Sans's face turned dark with anger, silently cursing that damn Jack Min for stealing the attention again. Just a few seconds later, Ryan stood facing him. He bowed politely, but his eyes held a challenge. Sans Phantom, right, I've heard a lot about you from my brother. Just hearing that name made the creditor break into a cold sweat. Others also chimed in. Isn't he the 4th son of the Shikman family who went missing? but Sans intended to seize this opportunity to cover up. If that's the case, I've heard quite a bit about it too. But Ryan quickly interrupted, launching a preemptive attack. Sans Phantom is indeed a good person. I've heard my brother say so. You two studied at Chung Academy, right? In the academy, no one was unaware of Sans's reputation, even if he only studied for a few months before dropping out. He was famous enough for everyone to know. The compliments sounded sweet like honey, but in reality, they were a poison that indirectly insulted Sans for being expelled. He was so angry that his face turned red, silently cursing Rian. That bastard. But Ryan didn't stop there. He added a fatal blow. You once saved a classmate from bullying and helped a girl who was being harassed. What else was it? Oh, right, the knee. Mentioning the knee, Sans's expression changed horrifically. The creditor sensed the strong smell of gunpowder and immediately stepped in front of Rian, trying to put out the fire. He said that when his knee hurt, it was you, Sans, who brought him good medicine. He hurriedly pulled Ryan away before Sans could explode in rage. Oh, the captain of the swordsmen asked me to convey this to you, but I forgot. Please come over here for a moment. As they passed by, Rian deliberately threw back a knowing smile and a look of disdain. Sans stood frozen in place, grinding his teeth. You bastard, how dare you threaten me in front of so many people? Feeling it. The rage was burning behind him. Rian felt smug, thinking, keep being angry, Sans Phantom. Your anger is the important seed that will sprout for my plan. That night, in a private room at the palace, after being publicly humiliated by Rian, Sans vented his anger on everything in sight, smashing a precious vase and screaming, Damn it, Rian Schickman, that damn bastard! Ryan's words echoed in his head, Oh, right the knee! Sans panicked, thinking that indeed that Brad guy had told everything. The fact that he wasn't the one who dropped out but was expelled, even though the Phantom family had silenced everyone, he recalled that humiliating day. Finally, he erupted in rage, using magic to suppress while shouting in his face. Sans Phantom, you have crossed the line without permission. But at that time, Sans had tried to defend himself in a cowardly manner. Sans Phantom. You've crossed a line you weren't supposed to, but at that moment, Sans tried to justify himself in a cowardly way. Rad really didn't know that was his girlfriend. He just wanted to cherish her because he thought it was admirable for an ordinary person to dare to enroll in the academy. But Red wouldn't accept that excuse. Before being commoners or nobles, you were all students of the academy, and yet you dared to use magic to harm a female student. You should immediately kneel before her and beg for forgiveness. And if you don't plead with a sincere heart, I will throw away the name of my family to kill you. But Wrath's threatening words filled with malice made Sans so scared that his knees went weak. Knowing he was no match for the monster, Wrath Sans had no choice but to kneel and apologize to the ordinary girl named Ella. That was the greatest humiliation of his life, a stain that seemed impossible to wash away. Sams held his head and screamed, his eyes bulging. He was determined to continue his cruel plan. Forget about that trash who has become a wraith. Now he had to silence his little brother first. He muttered to himself, a twisted smile appearing on his face. After all, he was about to taste misery. Just then, a knock on the door echoed, and he snapped angrily as he walked over. The door opened, and a man stepped into the darkness of the room. Upon seeing the visitor, Sans smirked, his expression shifting from annoyance to disdain. He never expected that someone of such stature would come looking for him in the middle of the night. The steward of the Schickman family, the creditor Hilda. That night, when the entire palace had fallen asleep, the Schickman family's convoy quietly left the royal capital. Sitting in the carriage, Rian pondered during the banquet. Everything I intended to do has been achieved. One escaped from the image of a useless spendthrift, planting in everyone's mind the image of a smart yet unfortunate boy without talent, while Sans Phantom had taken the bait perfectly. The creditor sitting across suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. Now I must say your behavior at the banquet astonished me. I even felt the flicker of hope for the Schich family. Min hasn't completely extinguished. Ryan pretended to be surprised. What do you mean, not only did I not build relationships with other nobles, but I also caused a rift with the Phantom family? The creditor hurriedly explained, but before the young master Sans, your actions were truly refreshing. Ryan looked at the creditor with deep, unreadable eyes and suddenly raised his hand. A faint purple magic enveloped the space. Seeing the strange action, the creditor anxiously asked, Young master, why did you suddenly turn off all the soundproofing of the carriage? But before he could finish, Ryan coldly interrupted. Reiterating what you just said, the flicker of hope hasn't completely extinguished. If you truly believe that, perhaps you wouldn't have chosen to betray the Schickman family. The creditor was drenched in cold sweat, his face drained of color. Even so, he still tried to play dumb. "What do you mean?" Ryan replied in a firm, sharp tone like a knife. "Your crime is very serious. It cannot be forgiven." The carriage continued to roll steadily down the road, and the escorting soldiers outside were completely unaware. A storm was brewing inside. Ryan continued his tone, shifting to a softer yet authoritative one. "But because you committed this crime to protect the Shich-Min family, I might forgive you." The creditor stared at him in utter shock, finally dropping his mask. He bowed his head, trembling. "How? How do you know to that extent?" Then Ryan quietly replied, his voice transmitting directly into the man's mind through sound magic. "I know that was something you had to do, so I gave you a chance. Listen to me, and as before, make your own decision." The carriage approached a small stream, and Ryan recounted his entire counter-espionage plan. After a while of listening, the creditor exclaimed in disbelief, "How could you think of this? How could you come up with such a plan? Who exactly are you?" But Ryan did not answer, only looking at him with a serious gaze, one much older than his 12 years. The creditor unexpectedly covered his face and burst into loud laughter, a mix of tears of relief and happiness. "Right now, I just want to scream out of excitement." Without a doubt, Ryan smiled, knowing what you would choose as he looked out the window, announcing that the chief creditor we had already left the capital. He saw Ryan's confident demeanor and suddenly realized that this child knew exactly what was about to happen, yet could still smile. No, that wasn't an innocent smile. It was a cold, cruel one that sent shivers down his spine. Just as he thought this, the carriage suddenly braked hard. Brian the coachman turned back confused and shouted, "Why did we stop?" "Keep going." But as soon as he finished speaking, he was horrified to see the assistant coachman slumped over, blood pouring from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Brian was stunned, unable to gather his thoughts as a barrage of arrows whistled through the air. The guards shouted loudly, "Ambush! Protect the carriage! Be careful, the arrows are enchanted!" Noah, the captain of the guards, yelled amidst the chaos. "Mages set up a barrier. Who dares to attack the Min family? Step forward and kneel." Taking advantage of the chaos, Ryan quickly donned the uniform of a soldier he had prepared, disguising himself perfectly. He called out loudly to Noah to distract him. Captain Noah immediately ordered without suspicion, "Don't approach the carriage until we know the situation. Even if it's one of ours, I'll cut you down." But when Noah turned back and saw the carriage door ajar, he hesitated and stepped forward. What is this?" The door swung wide open, revealing an empty interior. His nerves frayed, he screamed, "The young master has vanished." Noah was left speechless. What is happening?" Meanwhile, in the pitch-black night, a figure was riding a horse at breakneck speed. It was the creditor, cloaked in black, urging his horse on, panting with excitement. Behind him, Ryan was bound a perfect hostage. The absolute darkness system was activating, causing sensory disturbances and physical deterioration. But Ryan thought to himself, how long has it been? Even the various abnormal status magics had been placed on him too many times. At this moment, the guards of the Min family must be in chaos just like in his previous life. After this kidnapping incident, the Min family had poured all their resources into searching for the last direct heir, resulting in a rapid decline leading to complete collapse. But for Ryan in the present, this event was a turning point. He would push it to the exact moment he wanted to exploit it thoroughly. He recalled the astonished expression of the creditor when he heard the plan to annihilate the Min family's status, which was already very serious. What if at such a time we showed the effort to revive the family? Other prominent families would surely feel threatened and seek to restrain them. If they banded together to attack, the current Min family would not withstand it. Therefore, he had deliberately let rumors spread to show them that the last direct heir of the Saki family could absolutely not become a threat to them, making them complacent. However, even if other families fell into the trap, the Phantom family, who wanted to crush the Siki family to the roots, would not let him be at ease, no matter how much the rumors might buy him time. So he just needed to take advantage of that. San's Phantom had fallen for my provocation. If he planned to do anything, the perfect moment would be when I returned from the capital. If there was someone on the inside colluding, that would be even better. This morning, Ryan recalled his enigmatic smile as he pointed at the creditor and said, "Now make your choice." The creditor would turn this upcoming event into the climax of the Siki family's collapse, or transform it into the opening shot for the revival plan of the Seki family. Moments later, a system notification appeared before Ryan. Bringing good news, a magic power index had resisted the abnormal state of the green earth. Ryan smirked, satisfied, thinking, Good, everything is still going according to plan. He turned to look at the creditor, the old steward, who was now bowing deeply. The peak of the collapse of the Seckman house, or turning it into the opening shot for the restoration plan of the Seckman house moments later, a system notification appeared before Rian's eyes. Bringing good news, a magic power index system resisted the abnormal state of the green earth, having resisted the unusual state. Ryan smirked with satisfaction, thinking, good, everything is still going according to plan. He turned to look at the creditor, the old steward, who was now bowing down. His voice trembled with regret. I'm sorry, young master. Ryan quickly reassured him with a determined gaze. Just follow the plan, creditor. That's the only way you'll be forgiven. But it didn't stop there. The next notifications kept popping up. The magic power resisted the abnormal state. All indices reached 20, and the feeling of liberation was palpable. Feeling the surge of power swirling within him, Ryan nodded in satisfaction. Good, this means the first growth condition has been met. After a while of riding through the dense forest. Finally, the creditor brought Ryan to the meeting point where Sans Phantom was already waiting. Seeing the creditor carrying Ryan, who was bound, he feigned a satisfied demeanor. You've worked hard. He flashed a fake smile, his tone dripping with condescension. I didn't expect you to come in person. After all, this is a transaction. His gaze shot a contemptuous look at the creditor. Emphasizing each word, a transaction, the steward, the creditor Hilda of the Seckman house, left his sentence hanging, instead replacing it with a bitter taunt about the betrayal from his own master. The creditor clenched his fists, trying to suppress the boiling anger to respond, You're going too far, young Master Sans Phantom. But Sans wouldn't let him off easily, continuing to mock him with insulting comparisons. I can hear a dog barking. A dog that betrays its master should just accept the price to pay. Saying that, Sans threw out a carefully sealed scroll. This is the information I bought with the intelligence from the evil son, meaning the information has been verified. The creditor grabbed the scroll, asking with suspicion, This information is certain right. Sanskin firmly asserted, the evil San is also a renowned family of the Great Six Dre. Although famous as an assassin clan, trading information is their main profession and they never sell fake news. Among them is information about the discovery of traces of the missing elemental systems of the Seckman house, but while the two were conversing, Rian kept his eyes tightly shut, pretending to be unconscious. But inside he was calculating, this is the reason the creditor betrayed the Seckman house, selling me a powerless direct descendant in exchange for a chance to find his lost brothers. Those who could truly lead the Seckman house, even knowing that the evil San held the information the creditor still couldn't buy it himself. The Phantom House must have acted first, achieving the highest price with their superior financial power. The transaction completed, San stepped toward Ryan, coldly ordering the creditor. You can leave now, your job is done, traitor. Before turning away, the creditor threw a warning glance. Keep your promise. San scoffed, a promise how empty. Of course your precious young master will be sent back home. Jack Min without a scratch. The creditor gritted his teeth and quickly mounted his horse, disappearing into the night. As his shadow faded, Henry San's subordinate spoke up. What to do with him now? Sans curled his lip in disdain. No need, he's just a dead man walking. Surely the Seckman house has realized he's the traitor by now, and he must return to the Seckman house for the grand plan to proceed as intended. Today, Henry bowed his head. All preparations are complete. He hesitated to ask further, will you do it yourself? Sans roughly grabbed Ryan's hair, yanking his head up, his eyes gleaming with cruelty. Of course I have to stand here and watch that traitor's face. Just waiting for this moment. Soon after, the group moved to a secret location, and Ryan slowly opened his eyes as the dizziness faded away. The first thing he saw was Sans's exaggerated face looming close, and seeing that his prey had awakened, Sans firmly grabbed his head and said, So, kid, do you understand the situation now? Ryan glanced around and realized he was in a damp cell. Sans had tightly bound his hands and feet to a chair, and he couldn't help but laugh at Ryan's miserable state. It's truly ironic that a direct descendant of the Min family could end up in such a pathetic situation. Then Ryan calmly asked in a firm voice, Sans Phantom, what do you intend to do? He spread his arms wide, casually responding, looking as if he didn't understand why. I just kidnapped the one with the noble blood of the Min family. Ryan pretended to be flustered. Do you know what will happen next? Sans stared blankly, then burst out laughing as if he had heard a joke. Are you trying to threaten me, just like at that banquet? But in response to that mockery, Ryan only offered a smile full of meaning, noticing that attitude. Sans frowned, starting to bring up old stories to humiliate him in this moment. Seems like you've heard a lot from your brother, huh? But he hasn't told you about this, has he? That when your father and brothers are all dead, he said while kicking Ryan hard, shouting, "Don't act proud in front of the Phantom family. You probably don't even know why you were brought here, do you?" Despite the blood trickling from the corner of his mouth from the kick, Ryan maintained an oddly calm expression while Sans was rambling on, pleased with himself. Ryan was quietly casting magic. "The one who was always surrounded by guards in that safe carriage the creditor has sold you off. He traded you for information about your siblings' whereabouts. No one is coming to save you. Want to know what will happen next? The war between the Phantom family and the Min family, your kidnapping is just the first stone in that game. Understand?" After hearing his grand plan, Ryan burst out laughing, his gaze as sharp as a knife. "You're really talkative, aren't you, such a fool?" In that moment, a powerful surge of magic erupted from Ryan, causing Sans to step back in fear, not understanding what was happening. The magic circle activated, and Ryan gently declared as the magical light enveloped him, healing all his wounds in an instant. Sans stared wide-eyed, unable to believe what he was seeing, but refusing to back down, he quickly began chanting a counterattack. In contrast to his opponent's panic, Ryan felt an overwhelming joy. He had returned to the Dre realm and was just waiting for this day. By the time Sans realized something was off, it was already too late. He shouted, "What the?" His feet were bound tight by his own magic. Ryan's power had spread throughout the room, turning it into his domain. Sans panicked and struggled. "What the hell? Nothing's happening!" He pointed at Ryan's face, trying to act tough just to buy a few seconds with this ridiculous act. "Hey, fool, I already told you, didn't I?" But before he could finish, Sans had to fall silent. His face contorted in shock as Ryan looked up, his eyes shining with magic. "You're talking too much." Sans opened his mouth, ready to curse again, but a sound couldn't escape his throat, which hurt sharply. He could only gasp in despair, clutching his throat in sheer terror. His throat couldn't make a sound anymore. Ryan calmly explained, like a teacher giving a lesson. "With this silence spell, your advanced magic has been sealed. A wizard who can't chant spells, what do you think will happen?" Sans went wild, trying to launch an attack without chanting at Ryan. "Then Fireborn doesn't need a chant," he screamed in his mind, but Ryan didn't even bother to dodge. He apathetically watched the weak fireball fly towards him, not needing a chant, only able to use magic up to level 3. Moreover, right now you can't use damaging magic. This kidnapping was an order from the head of the Phantom family. But while Sans was desperately trying to attack, Ryan calmly analyzed, "You definitely want to avoid me dying, just as I thought you can only use level 2 magic. Lower than your ability, and that's your mistake." The fireball from Sans aimed at Ryan's leg. He smugly thought, "Breaking a leg, maybe Dad will forgive me." But the smile that was about to bloom faded instantly. His magic vanished the moment it touched Ryan, a system that resisted level 2 magic. Sans went mad, switching to higher-level fire magic, and Ryan smirked. "This time it's level 3 magic, huh?" "What a pity, but you've lost your last chance," he said lightly. "You think I'll just stand still for you to hit me?" With just a flick of his wrist, Ryan countered the attack, leaving Sans utterly astonished by the sheer power. But that was just the beginning. Ryan used his gaze to control the flow of magic, binding Sans's hands and sending a piercing pain directly into his nervous system, causing him to collapse to the floor in agony. "As soon as the magic reached a predetermined level, I could instantly nullify it. Now, no matter what you do, it's pointless, you fool." Cornered Sans pulled out a hidden dagger from his belt, ready to fight to the death. But once again, he opened his eyes wide in horror as Ryan calmly used magic to break the chains binding him like snapping a dry twig. "Surprise, huh? For me, breaking these chains is a trivial matter, and it's not just 2 spells." After Ryan subtly moved his fingers, he activated another magic circle right beneath Sans' feet. Paralysis struck as the dark energy touched Sans' body, making him scream in agony. His body stiffened, turning to stone, and he fell helplessly to the floor. Ryan stepped forward, leaning down to look at the defeated one. But just before consciousness slipped into darkness, Sans managed to hear a chilling whisper, "The roles have reversed now." Moments later, Sans woke up to find himself tightly bound to a chair just like Ryan had been before. In front of him, Ryan was playing with the dagger, his tone playful. "Awake already? You slept for so long I almost had to wake you up. By the way, that's a nice dagger you have there. You've been bound by your own chains." Sans struggled wildly, gritting his teeth. but suddenly he realized that the bindings were just ordinary iron chains, not a magical seal. He felt a surge of relief. This fool. Just as the thought of resistance crossed his mind, Ryan snapped his fingers and an invisible blade of wind struck Sans. Causing him to scream in pain, Ryan looked at him with disdain. "Do you really think I'm that stupid?" Sans coughed his head, spinning, unable to see the magic circle anywhere. Ryan pointed his chin towards Sans's bare body. "You think you can bind a mage without any preparations? I've already inscribed the magic circle all over your body?" Sans, horrified, asked what it was. Instead of answering, Ryan plunged the dagger into his thigh, blood gushing out. "Aha!" Ryan calmly continued inscribing magical symbols onto his flesh. "You should understand this, right? The forbidden technique of inscribing magic circles as scars on the body is terrifyingly effective. This blood magic circle, you know it well, don't you?" Because he had once used it on Ryan in a past life, Ryan recalled that pain. Filled with resentment, he activated the magic to stay conscious, refusing to faint. Just to carve scars on the body of a 12-year-old child like me. After that, Sans trembled and asked, "How do you know how to use that kind of magic? Moreover, according to my investigation, you shouldn't even be able to use magic." Ryan didn't bother explaining. He simply recalled his journey thanks to his memories from his past life and experiences in Adrian after learning the mana cultivation method 3 months ago. "The first thing I did was focus on upgrading my stealth skill. Each skill has a secret core that only those who reach the master player level like me can comprehend. I still remember the core of all the skills I ever possessed, which is why I don't need to research or train from scratch, as long as I have mana and the conditions I can learn. But thanks to my stealth skill, Ryan had sneaked into this place many times. He knew every nook and cranny to set traps to catch Sans. It was surprisingly easy for him to fall into the trap. Ryan thought to himself that this was originally a pain-inducing magic circle. "And you intended to use it on me. Now you should worry about how it will affect you." The torture dragged on from late at night until dawn broke with Sans screaming hoarsely, finally despairing and begging. "Please stop, it hurts too much. Just stop. Please stop, it hurts too much. Just stop." Rian paused and repeated exactly what Sans had said in a past life, saying that today would end here for now. Sans sighed, mumbling something emotional, but immediately changed his tone, trying to find a way out. "No, I'm going to give you a chance. My family is on their way, so run away right now." "Because you stopped torturing me, I'm telling you," Rian coldly interrupted. "It's one more week." San jumped. "How do you know?" Rian recounted every word of his plan. "Because you wanted to enjoy torturing me alone. You told your subordinates to come back only after a week." "You—" San was stunned. "So you weren't unconscious then?" He stammered. No, they'll be here soon." Rian saw through his heart. "If they're coming, are you going to let me know?" "No, if it were you, you'd definitely be as silent as a grave, just begging for mercy until the phantom people come here and kill me." Sans gritted his teeth, his face pale. Rian continued to deliver another shock. "Because they belong to your family, the fingers of the phantom." Mentioning the fingers of the phantom made Sans scream in denial of his family's direct lineage. "Those so-called fingers of the phantom? It's true," Ryan said, not listening anymore. He slapped Sunstar hard, activating the magical seal on him, causing a pain that tore through flesh. Ex-Orion turned his back and walked away, leaving Rena's desperate cries behind. "Then go ahead and keep screaming. A promise is a promise, so I won't touch you today. But in my mind, I'm calculating every step." "Then let's get ready to welcome guests, shall we? The elite team of the Phantom family will arrive in a week. There mustn't be even the slightest mistake." A week later in the evening, sure enough, the Phantom family had arrived. The leader was Ake, one of the fingers of the Phantom. "Is he here?" Ake asked in a deep voice. Henry nodded, yes. "It's been a week since the young master kidnapped the Seok Min kid and came in here. But no, there has been no contact, so I reported it to you, Ake." Ake frowned, pondering. "It's strange. No one else approached in the past week. Yes, the passage here is being closely monitored." Ake clicked his tongue, his hands starting to gather magical power. "If that kid escapes too far and causes trouble, it will be a big problem. The master's order is to bring the kid from the Seok Min family back alive." "I'll go in," Henry said, preparing to follow. "Yes, but," Ake shouted loudly, "you guys are just a hindrance. Wait outside." The fingers of the Phantom prioritize the master's orders above all else. Even the bloodline of the Phantom family is no exception. Ake finished speaking and stepped inside, each step cautious and probing. "It's strange. There's an unsettling aura, but I can't sense any mana. Suddenly, Rin's magical traps activated, rushing toward Ake, who quickly created a protective shield. He silently assessed. The traps were activated through a magic circle. This person not only knows the structure here, but also has considerable strength. They place these traps in every corner. Who could it be, the Seki family or a third party? Ake shouted in frustration, preparing for an attack. Even if I don't know who the hell it is, I will make you regret daring to provoke a member of the Phantom family. Approaching the cell door, he saw it unguarded and broke in. The scene before him startled him. Sans was slumped on the chair, blood flowing like a stream. The young master Ake rushed over to check. Sans opened his eyes, weakly relieved to see a savior. He used a magical artifact to check the seal on Sans's hand. This mana, it must be Sans' phantom. He turned to look at Rian, who was sitting quietly in the corner of the room, and asked, Sans, what exactly happened? Quick, Sans, give the order for the recovery potion. Sans shook his head, saying, first we need to get out of here. The enemy hasn't revealed themselves yet. It's very dangerous. He glanced at Ryan with suspicion. You've managed to capture and bind that young master, but why didn't you take the kid with you? So the goal isn't just to rescue that kid, it's definitely a bait. At that moment, Sans pointed at Ryan and shouted, the one who brought me to this state is none other than Ryan Sickman. The four demons were startled, and without hesitation, he turned to attack Ryan. First, I'll use magic to make that kid unable to move. Mind control to shatter both body and spirit, a perfect binding. He began to chant a level 7 spell, but Ryan calmly replied, you're being too cautious. Immediately, the demon's magic was reflected back at him. He panicked and shouted, Fireball! A huge explosion shook the room, but the demon sensed something was off, an illusion. In the next moment, he spat blood and staggered back. You canceled my level 7 spell before I finished the incantation, so there's a side effect. Ryan smirked. It's quite uncomfortable, isn't it, having your mana disrupted? A great sorcerer like you should recover quickly. If you noticed something was off when you entered this room, then you should have dealt with me first. Being mocked by a child drove the demon insane. How dare you use illusions to deal with me, a master illusionist? Oh, deceptive visuals disappear. He dispelled the illusion magic, breaking Ryan's clone, but Ryan had already lunged forward, holding Sans's dagger with reckless abandon. The demon roared. With just one blow, I'll send you flying like a kite with a broken string. He spat blood all over the floor. You think this is enough to hit my weak spot? Even if you smash half of my face, the master will overlook it. Perhaps that illusion was your ultimate move. He scoffed, stepping closer to Ryan. Just how much have you underestimated Phantom's finger? But suddenly he froze, looking down at his feet. There was a dagger, the one Ryan had held earlier, lying on the ground and moving slightly. The demon's eyes widened in disbelief. A sharp blade pierced through his neck from behind, blood gushed out, choking him, and the one holding the dagger was Sans. The demon looked at his young master with disbelief. But Sans opened his mouth, his tone dripping with sarcasm, just like Rian. Truly, such useless arrogance leads to your own downfall. Do you know how to transfer souls? A smirk spread across Sans's face. My soul is currently trapped in my body in an unconscious state, and you can guess that you can't kill me, because of the master's orders on the blood magic circle drawn on this body. In addition to amplifying pain, there's also a spell to transfer my soul to another person to control that body. This is my real trump card! As the demon coughed up blood, he struggled to chant a spell attacking Sans' body that contained Ryan's soul flames erupted, incinerating the room. This is my real trump card, as the evil spirit coughed up blood while trying to cast a spell to attack Sans's body, which was holding the soul of Ryan, and the flames erupted, burning the room to ashes. The molten iron mask melted off the guy's face, but it was too late. The last breath of the evil being fell as Ryan emerged from the sea of flames, only his clothes slightly singed thanks to protective magic. You look at the evil being's corpse, grinning triumphantly. Gotcha! Ryan returned to his true body and took a strange potion from the evil being. He poured it over himself to activate a pain-resistant skill system that had been created. The level of pain resistance increased. Ryan held his head, mumbling, "It hurts, but there's no other way." He quickly staged the scene using water to fake sweat on Sans's face. I did it! I managed to hunt down a level 7 Grand Sorcerer, and suddenly a series of eye-catching notifications popped up in the system announcing that the quest was completed. Level up Ryan's segment level is now 15. Ryan was stunned. The level jumped from 2 to 15. It was an obvious result after defeating the demon, but could it be because of the last quest? No, I have something urgent to do. You drew a new magic circle and placed the demon's corpse on the wooden door. The success of this will determine everything. Let's see how much we can shorten the upcoming plan. You started channeling mana into the magic circle to perform the downgrade ritual and change your class. The system level has dropped to 5. You have completed the additional requirements. You have leveled up to the hidden class of Shadow Assassin. The hidden class of the assassin is achieved when agility reaches 20 and magic power reaches 15 before hitting the evolution threshold of level 5. Strength 15 before reaching the evolution threshold of level 5. Then Ryan shouted in his heart, feeling successful. But if there are still extra levels left, he could try 2 more times as thunderbolts streaked across the sky, striking the castle as if to prevent Ryan from continuing to force mana into the spell. A system you have evolved into a successful version. You have leveled up to the Death Hand, a high-tier profession of the Dark Mage. Ryan was thrilled to have succeeded in 2 opportunities at once. The Death Hand is a combination of Dark Mage and Assassin, extremely powerful. He took a deep breath, his eyes gleaming with madness, thinking if he could successfully level up a 3rd time. With the remaining levels, he would receive the mysterious Phantom Profession, which is the top-tier class that would help Adrian become the strongest. The issue is whether he can secure it. The high-tier Phantom Profession is about soul size. If he fails, the consequences will be severe, but there's no time to hesitate. Ryan decided to bet everything. Your level system has dropped 5 levels. Warning, your soul is damaged. Ryan screamed in pain, blood pouring from his mouth and eyes, feeling as if his whole body was being torn apart. Is leveling up to the high-tier profession for the 3rd time impossible? Amidst the pain of life and death, memories of his past life flooded back like a torrent, images of Alejandro dying in his place. Sena's bloodied face, the tears of loved ones, all that pain turned into fuel, igniting his soul and creating a tremendous willpower. Even if I have to sacrifice my soul, I will achieve the high-tier Phantom Profession. Magic exploded to its maximum. Your soul system is strong enough to perform a mysterious profession that is now opening up. You have leveled up to the Spectre, the high-tier profession of the Phantom. Ryan stared in shock at the new card Spectre, a profession he had never seen. Even in Adrian, it was even higher than Phantom. He looked at the corpse of the evil mage, smiling cunningly. Now is the time to execute the original plan. The innate ability of the Phantom increases the power of the Dark Mage's spells. Killing the 7th-tier mage is also part of this plan. I hope this precious material holds up. A skill activation system to create a lich. Ryan began the usual ritual, requiring a Dark Mage level of 70 to accomplish. But with the material being the corpse of a 7th-tier mage, anything is possible. The 4 eyes of the evil mage's corpse suddenly shone brightly. The system created a failure list, activating the creation of a special monster. Ryan panicked. This was beyond his expectations. A massive amount of mana was released, and the evil mage's body slowly stood up, but its form had completely changed. It was no longer the rough man, but the shape of a girl with an enchanting beauty and dark power. The creation of the special monster was successful. The girl smiled at Ryan, a cold smile but full of submission. Would you like to name her? The monster creation ritual was just completed, and a massive surge of mana erupted from Ryan's position, tearing apart the night and accidentally dyeing a corner of the sky red with brilliant magical light. The aftershock was followed by a terrifying explosion that shook the ground, causing anyone outside to be terrified amidst the chaotic scene. ZAE shouted loudly. Panic-stricken eyes scanned the crowd. What was that explosion? Where's Lord San? In response, there was only a terrifying silence. A few seconds later, from the rubble, amidst the thick dust, Ryan emerged in S's body, carrying the motionless body of Ryan on his shoulder. The soldiers were shocked, stuttering, Lord! Ryan didn't respond, only frowned, his sharp gaze piercing deep into them. To avoid suspicion, he quickly concocted a reason to blame the enemy. Zane stared in disbelief. What? Not giving the opponent a chance to recover, Ryan immediately interrupted, his tone filled with anger. This fool is real. I am one of Fan's fingers who betrayed me. Can't you see my situation and still not understand? He pretended to be angry, striding decisively toward the horse, then gently placed his own body on its back, his voice lowering. Fortunately, I used an artifact to bind him. But I definitely can't hold him for long. I will take Ri and Shimen out of here before you guys hold back that Akai. Give me time to return to the clan. Understand, reinforcements will arrive immediately. If you all do well in stopping him, everyone will be greatly rewarded. With that, he didn't hesitate and spurred the horse to dash away. Leaving the bewildered crowd behind at the main camp, the air was thick with tension as Zane knelt at the feet of Pyrrhus, the 7th-level sorcerer of the Phantom Clan, radiating authority. He trembled, mumbling in fear about not finding any trace of the enemy that morning, while Pyrrhus gripped the report in his hand so tightly that it crumpled. With a face hardened by doubt, Zane questioned if this report was truly real. "So, were you the only ones who knew what happened that night?" Zane fully understood that his fate was hanging by a thread. He glanced at the shadow behind Pyrrhus and stammered, Yeah, that's right." But that answer was also his last. A cold blade swung up in a flash, leaving Zane only enough time to let out a desperate scream before blood sprayed like rain. After dealing with the useless one, Beavis still couldn't feel at ease. The disappearance of Lord Phaeton was an unpredictable disaster if it turned out that the Phantom Clan's fingers were involved in the kidnapping of Chief Semin. Trouble would come crashing down like a flood. Just then, outside the tent, a loud commotion erupted as Virus stepped out, greeted by the sight of Beavis threatening loudly. A bold intruder dared to breach the camp, ignoring the warnings. That person stepped forward arrogantly, causing Beavis to furrow his brows in anger. The newcomer was Alejandro, and he gritted his teeth. His fiery eyes glared at Beavis, and it took him a moment before he finally spoke. "So what if I take another step?" "Then we'll kill all of you, trash!" The killing intent radiating from Alejandro was overwhelming. Seeing the opponent's audacity right in his territory, Beavis immediately shouted to demand accountability. "You dare to invade another clan's territory without notice? Don't you think this could be an excuse for war between the clans?" Alejandro remained unfazed, turning to retort sharply. "Aren't you the ones who started the war first? Bring Lord Rien out here now!" Beavis glanced at the army ready in formation in the distance, trying to counter, "It's not that you're suspicious, it's that you're definitely guilty." Alejandro pointed straight at the camp, his voice booming, affirming that it was a suspicious construction and an underground base that we discovered with the Phantom Clan setting up camp right in front of us. "Isn't it to cover up what happened here?" Cornered by the opponent's words, Virus reluctantly lowered his voice to admit the humiliating truth. "We truly don't know where Chief Sakmin is. Moreover, our young master is also missing. I hope you'll cooperate in the search today." Alejandro coldly interrupted his patience, wearing thin. However, he didn't believe the silence and this disrespectful attitude had angered Pyrrhus. Alejandro warned sternly, reminding them, "We won't allow you to ruin the scene before the investigation is over." As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately cast a powerful spell from the other side. Virus also refused to back down, unleashing his power in response from a distance. The creditor secretly observed the situation, muttering to himself, worried about the appearance of the phantom troops. But at that moment, Senna's icy voice rang out beside him, chastising his excessive chatter. "Who gave you permission to speak freely?" The betraying creditor knew he was in trouble, sweat pouring down like rain, feeling frustrated and silenced. Senna suddenly unleashed magic, his gaze sharp as a dagger. "If it weren't for the young master's words, I would have turned you to dust a long time ago. Now shut up and only speak about finding the young master." In front of Senna, the creditor could only bow his head in obedience. The young master had said he would leave a trace. Senna scanned the desolate forest around in a place like this. The creditor hurriedly explained his viewpoint. If it were easy to find, the Phantom Clan would have discovered it first. Only the great earth-green spell of Sakmin can find it. No matter what, the master has succeeded at least once. So the resonant nature of the spell must still linger, even if faint, to confirm that Senna created a glowing magic sphere and threw it forcefully ahead. When the sphere hit an invisible barrier and vanished, she quietly rejoiced as a familiar amount of mana appeared from the nearby bushes. The creditor stared in surprise, wondering what was happening. The figure that appeared was none other than S, and both felt a deep sense of disappointment. Senna turned to the creditor and said in a tone of disappointment, "It's just a Suns fan." However, she quickly noticed the piece of cloth covered in spells hanging from his chest, and more importantly, a letter carefully placed under a small stone, making Senna tense up immediately. The creditor impatiently called out to him, loudly asking if there were any traces of the master. Senna quickly replied, "Wait, there's a letter here." She trembled as she opened the letter. Everything was according to Ryan's plan. If it were Sina, she would definitely find it. The content of the letter was a meticulous plan that he had laid out. "I once thought of taking over S's body to disrupt the internal affairs of the Fawn family, but if it's the Phaeton clan leader, an 8th-level mage, the chances of him discovering my soul swap are very high. If I return to the S-Min clan as Ryan, it could spark a war between the two clans over this matter. The S-Min clan currently doesn't have the strength to endure a war, so there's only a third option left. Before I disappear, I must leave a convincing explanation for Senna. After reading, Senna immediately used magic to incinerate the letter into ashes, and the creditor couldn't contain his curiosity. He pressed her, asking what was written in it. Senna calmly replied, hiding the significant secret, "Let's just return to the S-Min clan." Just as the letter burned completely, a great eagle soared towards the city, heading straight for the rising sun. Below the eagle, a boy was hurrying along. Hubert saw him and called out loudly, "Hey, the team leader is looking for you. Let's go." Turning back to Senna, the creditor was still rambling, urging her about the letter's content. Senna began to feel annoyed, and she started to cut him off. "I'm sure already." At that moment, Hubert the boy obediently replied, "Yes, sir." It turned out that this boy named Long was actually Ryan in disguise, and Senna understood that in her heart. She said half jokingly, half seriously, with a hint of meaning, "The young master has become the Dragon of Auntie." 3 months later, in the bustling streets of the Lion Kingdom's capital, Ryan, now with a new identity, was Lion. Accidentally overhearing the excited chatter of the townsfolk, "Have you heard the news? The Phantom and S-Min clans are at odds. The Lion Kingdom and—" Fuar had to intervene to settle this. "What's the reason?" "I heard that a traitor from the Fenton clan kidnapped the last descendant of the ex-Min bloodline. In the end, Min accepted compensation from Fenton, but the criminal hasn't been found. The kidnapped child is also missing, right? What is the S-Min clan thinking to accept compensation? Their clan head, known as the Golden Dragon, has long since vanished. Once a prestigious family, now they're just a pile of ruins." Just then, Lion caught the apple that Hubert tossed as a farewell and left. "You are now a member of the Phantom branch of the Assassination Association, and news about the two families has reached Safia, the Level 2 assassin and head of the Phantom branch." She took a sip of wine and casually remarked that the last person with the family bloodline had disappeared, making the compensation even more necessary. At that moment, Safia suddenly paused, thought for a moment, and sighed. "It's so boring, all this old news that everyone already knows. What about the news that the butler of Smin's family was executed?" After that, he placed the glass down on the table with a clink, his serious tone revealing that he had been discovered collaborating with Patton's people, who immediately beheaded him. Safia raised an eyebrow in surprise. "He is a famous swordsman, so he knows that the opponent is a master swordsman on the continent." Just then, the large door swung open, interrupting the conversation, and Sophia cheerfully exclaimed upon seeing the person enter, "You're here, Lei." Lee quickly approached to greet "Hello, Uncle Dan." He casually replied, "Are you here to meet the branch head? Safia invited you to sit down and pushed a letter forward saying, 'Finally, you've come today.' Do you know what this is? It's a letter recommending you to become an official member of Phantom." Lee smiled slightly, but tried to suppress his excitement to maintain a calm demeanor. After all, there was still one more test to go. Safia nodded in confirmation. That's right. It's your first time going into battle, right? But for you, this test doesn't mean much, does it?" She handed you the letter, her expression turning serious. "The Asen family is a prestigious assassination clan, the 4th largest on the continent. In just 2 months at Martin's Phantom branch, you've already passed all the challenges to reach the final test." Seeing Lion's cautious gaze, Safia laughed and praised, "Our branch has indeed welcomed an extraordinary talent, the shortest trial period, and the youngest member in 100 years. Lai humbly replied, "I'm still far from the Level 2 branch head." Safia immediately countered, "You're just being modest. Anyway, compared to the first time we met, your expression is much better now." She lifted her teacup, her gaze distant as she recalled the past, the memory taking her back to a torrential, rainy night 2 months ago when Lai appeared soaked, but with an unusually determined look in his eyes. "You brought a huge sum of money to request an assassination on yourself. At that time, Safia looked at you with annoyance, thinking it was a joke, and you simply replied nonchalantly, 'Because I heard that as long as you have money, this organization will accept requests after confirming the amount. You treated me like a customer,' she explained. "It's not because of the money that my attitude changed. I have a feeling that I might not meet such a strange customer again." "Like you, right? A ragged child bringing money to request an assassination on himself, isn't that interesting?" Lee covered his mouth and chuckled softly, standing up to take the letter. "I'll read the letter myself before leaving." You turned back to remind her, "Call me when you're ready for the test." Safia smiled and agreed, promising to let Lon know. The door slammed shut as KL stepped out of the shadows, his voice filled with suspicion. The one who just left KL, is he being accepted because of a hunch? Safia replied, don't joke, you know the process. That boy. In just 1 month, all the assassination training was completed, but Lee was still standing outside the door, eavesdropping on KL as he handed over a detailed report. It's true you're quite the talent for thorough investigation. Lee doesn't have green hair or green eyes. He was picked up from the streets and raised by an unknown teacher. One day the teacher disappeared, and then he came here to search for information about him. The special point is to prove oneself to join the Matea, requesting to assassinate oneself, which allowed him to be tested on his abilities and quickly pass the training. Safia still had some doubts about whether it was true. KL insisted that everything was accurate. I went to where he lived with his teacher and found traces of someone nearby. However, Safia raised the biggest question. Even if the information is correct, the most important thing is whether he has any potential. Lee is not the same person, right? KL paused, sighed, and shook his head. The chances of being the same person are extremely low. There's also little information about the Min family, who not only lack magical power, but also have weak swordsmanship and physical strength. Everyone knows that. This result has been tracked since he was born. How could the declining Min family be the same person as a genius like Leon? If you want, I can continue the investigation. Safia stopped him. We can't waste talent like you on something useless. Investigate more about that teacher. If he really raised Lee, he definitely isn't an ordinary person. Lion heard the entire conversation thanks to magic. He breathed a sigh of relief, silently praising the keen senses of this woman. He checked the system status board. Ryan X Min class activated. Death Hand LV-13 hidden class Phantom Shadow. Phantom, a power of 27 agility, 39 physical strength, 24 magical power, 30 perception, 15 curse, a physical domination, B hidden body, a phantom force spirit transformation. He was satisfied, telling himself. Level consumption from class change has been restored. Investing magical power into physical domination also yields results, not only changing appearance, but also being undetected by magical sensors. He could even deceive them. Level 2 Skill Shape Perception of Assassination 4, recalling the day he created that special monster. Ryan had named it. When checking its stats, strength was 7, agility 5. Magical power, 23 skills of force and soul shield. Although the stats were low, the potential for development was limitless. Back to the present, Lee was standing on a high platform gazing at the moon when a voice appeared. What are you thinking about, Lee? He was startled but quickly regained his composure. I was thinking about what happens after passing the test and becoming an official member. And one day I will become the branch leader of Martin. A voice laughed heartily. With your pace of development, that dream is indeed possible. But today there will be 3 candidates and only one of you will pass. The voice began the roll call. Balalip Lion, as long as one of the 3 kills the target, they will become an official member. The atmosphere of the test began to grow tense as the voice announced that the test had started. First, let's hear information about the target. A quick clip showed the understanding of our target this time. His name is Arog, 47 years old, a businessman running a fairly stable shop, always accompanied by 3 mercenaries as bodyguards. 2 of them are bronze-ranked warriors, and 1 is a silver-ranked mage. Babala is no slouch either. There are rumors that he recently took a young mistress, and every night he goes to her bedroom. So at that time, the bodyguards wouldn't get close. Jiang was surprised by the preparation of the 2. They only mentioned the target's name but had investigated so thoroughly. Knowing the situation to the bodyguards and even finding ways to avoid them is good, but the test is today. Who can guarantee that the guy will go to his mistress's room? This tricky question left both of them flustered. Jiang turned to Lee, asking, Do you have any information? Speak up. Jiang, tell me what information you have about Mr. Long. Lai sighed nonchalantly and replied, I have to say it, don't I? The answer left everyone stunned as Lee coldly continued, It's not about working together to complete the mission. This is a test where only one person can pass. I had no reason to share my information. Lip and Pala were furious. What are you talking about? We just shared information, didn't we? After all, we're teammates. Lee replied without any emotion. Teammates, I was never taught about camaraderie during training, contrasting with the anger of the other 2 contestants. Ra laughed gleefully. Exactly. This is a test to utilize your own abilities, but the important part is using what you've learned to succeed. Do you 2 have anything else to say? He saw both of them silent and declared, From now on, feel free to assassinate the target. He watched Lai's back, silently assessing, This kid is impressive. Night fell at the target's mansion. As the lights flickered on, Pala crashed through the window, causing the plan to fail miserably as soldiers chased after him, shouting that there was an intruder. Here's the clip hiding nearby. I silently cursed my teammate for being such an idiot, but thanks to that, my job went smoothly. If he hadn't been discovered, I would have had to step in to expose him. In the bedroom, Arog panicked when he saw his wife burst in with people. He was furious. It was already unbearable to have a mistress, and now she brought a bunch of assassins, too. No, my love, it's not what you think, he hurriedly clarified. The assassins aren't my fault. This room is equipped with maximum security. I'm hiding on the ceiling, calculating the right moment to strike when the bodyguards were lured away by Pala, but a surprising scene unfolded, causing her plan to unravel as Arog's wife suddenly pulled out a knife, crying and screaming. I've tried to hold back. I remember when you used to whisper that you loved me, but I can't let you take money from my family anymore. Arog panicked, explaining that it was due to a lack of business capital. She didn't believe him. The money from her family was used to buy gifts for the mistress. Kelly didn't hesitate to stab her husband hard, a blood-curdling scream echoed. The space fell silent as the clip stood frozen, trembling at the unbelievable scene before her, staring at Arog, collapsing, his breath fading until she confirmed he was dead. Only then did Kelly drop the knife from her hand. The metallic clatter against the cold floor was like a bucket of cold water splashed on her mind, waking her from her frenzy. What have I done? Looking at her husband lying motionless in a pool of blood, she wailed, her cries echoing outside. Arog's subordinates, hearing the commotion, rushed over, shouting, "What's going on, ma'am?" "What's happening?" someone hiding on the ceiling wondered. Lips silently calculated, the mission was a success since the wife killed the target, or was it a failure? By the way, why hasn't Long shown up? We can't delay any longer. She quickly withdrew to the meeting point. Upon arrival, the clip lowered her head, reporting in a frustrated tone, "Mission failed. Arog was killed by his wife, not us." Lai quietly observed Jian's expression, while Led felt uncomfortable seeing him standing there so calmly next to him. She wondered why Long was here before her. Those two had arrived at the mansion at the same time as us. Lost in thought, the clip jolted when she saw Pala crawling back looking disheveled. Seeing his injured arm, Jian nodded to confirm his safety and then heard Pala panting, "I escaped because the bodyguards fought each other." Indeed, he had taken advantage of the chaos to escape. After hearing this, Jian clapped his hands, clearly announcing, "The test is over." But the assassination failed because Lai completed the mission. Both the clip and Pala exclaimed in unison. Arog lead, who witnessed it all, immediately protested, "You mean the mission was successful? Arog was clearly killed by his wife." But Jiang firmly asserted that it was indeed the work of Li. He saw them still bewildered, shouting about something, and calmly explained. After a moment, he concluded, Li had made Arog's first wife kill her own husband with her own hands. He manipulated her like a puppet, and the explanation sent chills down the spines of both of them as they turned to look at Lai with horrified eyes. Jian threw his arm around Li, laughing, and asked, "Can you explain how you did it?" Lai thought to himself, "Do you really think I would answer with a face like this as if to say, why should I bother?" He pretended to sigh awkwardly and replied, "I'll say that this unexpected collaboration surprised those two." Lai began to recount the entire plan, emphasizing the relationship between Arog and Kelly. He detailed everything until dawn broke. After hearing it, Bala couldn't hide his suspicion. "Did you exploit the internal situation of the assassination target? Could it be that the branch manager specifically revealed the target only to you?" "Right." Li immediately countered. "The moment I knew Arab was the target was no different from what you two knew at Phantom. He was a fairly famous businessman, so just hearing his name confirmed it. According to the information from you two, he's a liquor trader, and the fact that he just took a concubine is also true. The information about the bodyguard level and the concubine's bedroom is accurate as well. But I had already investigated all that beforehand. While you two were discussing the assassination plan, I just had to act according to the prepared plan." Both looked at Lai with a mix of anger and jealousy as Bala stepped forward to question him. "You said you didn't know who the target was before. But now you're saying you had everything investigated beforehand. That's unreasonable." Lai calmly replied, "I never said I only investigated one target. I looked into all the notorious figures that needed to be eliminated in this city. I had gathered information on all of them beforehand by befriending the gossiping merchants in the city, and since I had completed a 2-month training course. In just 1 month, I used the remaining time to prepare for each target. I was ready to react immediately, no matter who the target was. Both were stunned, realizing the gap in their levels. They thought to themselves, in other words, he didn't just study for the exam, he practically read the entire book beforehand. Eli continued, during that process, I discovered that there was someone who hated Arag intensely, his first wife, Kelly. I approached this woman who was cornered by her husband, and secretly suggested to her a way to resolve it, hire the assassin Yan Li. Both Pala and Bala were stunned by this terrifying calculation. Li continued, Arag continuously took concubines even though he looked down on his first wife, yet still used money from her to maintain his business. Ken hated him so much that he wanted to kill him. But in reality, he didn't want him dead. I told Ken that if he hired more mercenaries and increased security, Arag would be safe. Only the concubine would suffer. And when something happened, he would hide in the first wife's room, the safest place in the house. Then she could blame it on the concubine and her lover's conspiracy. He would come to his senses and return to her. He smirked. The woman who was drunk all day because of her husband easily believed my words. If everything had stopped there, it might have gone as she wished. But just before the assassination plan began, I informed her of another piece of information. The money Arag used to gift the new concubine was all money he took from the first wife, meaning it was money for business. Jiang silently admitted that from the very beginning they all had the same thoughts as him. This test has been in this kid's hands for a long time, hasn't it? Even though they had lost, they still had doubts about Kelly's actions. Jiang asked, But there's still something I don't understand. No matter how angry she was, how could an ordinary woman like her stab her husband? Even though they were defeated and accepted it, they still questioned Kelly's actions. But there's something I don't understand. How could an ordinary woman like her stab her husband to death? Lee said, because I helped a little, I mixed a potion made from alchemy into the wine delivered to Arag, and in case of any casualties, I also mixed that potion into the drinking water of the mercenaries. Luckily, it took effect just in time. I glanced over curiously, wondering what kind of potion it was. Lai explained that the potion temporarily dulls judgment and makes people easily agitated. Bala suddenly understood. Could it be that the mercenaries fought among themselves? It's also because of you, Lai. He nodded. Yeah, even though I wasn't taught about camaraderie, I don't want any of us or our training teammates to get killed. Bala squeezed his eyes shut, overwhelmed with emotion, while Lip was stunned, pondering the terrifying nature of Lion. In short, everything unfolded just as Lion had planned under the influence of the potion and the information you provided. Lady Kelly killed Arag in a fit of madness. In the end, Lip also admitted that it wasn't necessary to stab him personally to call it an assassination, right? Congratulations, you passed the test. But Lee didn't stop there. He added another shock. We can receive extra pay and bonuses from this. What Jian panicked. Lee smirked. He was quite clever to use Ken as an excuse. Ken suddenly became a murderer, but the fact that an assassin broke in was real. Only we know Arag was killed by Ken, not by the assassin. In Ken's position, she would definitely want to pay more to cover up the truth about her husband's death and to pin the murder on the assassin. Jian fell silent before this terrifying calculation. Bala silently admired. It was indeed completely different. Lip also reminded himself that from an assassin's perspective, this was truly an admirable way to handle things. I'd rather compete for second place than compete with Lai. Lai suddenly ordered, You two go back to Gil. And Lai, stay here, I need to talk. After the other two left, he asked in a serious tone, Do you understand what you've done? That woman named Ken will have to live her whole life with the guilt of killing her husband. She was just an ordinary woman now turned into a murderer. Can you even begin to understand that feeling, even a little? Jianlong hesitated. Gil was training a monster, not an assassin. Lee smiled knowingly and explained before knowing the reason AOC continuously took concubines. I see her as just an ordinary woman like everyone else. All the concubines Arag ever took have been dealt with by Ken just like Arag. Besides the liquor business, he also ran drugs, loan sharking, and gambling, ruining countless lives. Ken was the same. Until now, she still hasn't acted directly, but has used her family's influence to deal with them. Even though she despises him, she continues to take concubines, knowing that anyone she takes will be killed. The concubines who have died have all been manipulated by the Kenny family to simply disappear. The families of those concubines have no way to confront Kenny and have to keep searching for them. Jian pondered. Lai coldly continued, but these truths are just information revealed during the investigation. Although it's called a test, this is still an assassination request. Even if she didn't want her husband to die, the guild can only accept the commission if the target is dead. Whether the target deserves to die or not, or the circumstances of the client are not something an assassin needs to worry about. If conscience interferes in the act of assassination, then isn't it just murder? Receiving money to kill someone? Do we really need to care about the reasons or methods? Ken never said she didn't want to kill her husband herself. She exploited this assassination request. And we have to complete the mission because the undeniable truth is, there are assassins involved in Arog's death, even though the result is that she will have to endure the torment of having personally stabbed her husband to death. One or two words about conscience left Jian confused. Conscience in assassination, if it were us, we wouldn't need it, would we? Lee replied with a cold philosophy, if you want to maintain your humanity, strengthen your power. Strengthening power changes things fundamentally. He turned and walked away, leaving behind a line, as long as we operate under the Assassination Guild, nothing will change. The next morning in Safia's room, Lion donned his guild uniform, standing solemnly during the special ceremony. Safia held the certificate, smiling brightly, congratulating him on passing the test. From this moment on, you are now an official member of Gil Martin and a level 3 assassin. The system immediately notifies you of your promotion, and you gain the respect expected from other members. Safia continued, from now on, as a level 3 assassin, you can accept official missions from Martin if you meet the requirements, and you can also apply for a promotion. But anyway, you don't plan to get promoted right away, do you? Suddenly, Liang raised a finger, saying that completing a single mission worth 30 gold or more would qualify. Safia was sweating profusely, Liang calmly listed the conditions: either complete 10 level 3 missions or be nominated by a branch leader or a level 2 assassin. These are the exact requirements for promotion. Safia dared not hide it, that's right. Liang pressed on, asking how much the pay was for this mission. Seeing Pala about to speak up to intervene, Safia gritted her teeth and cut in, "What are you barking about?" Liang persisted, "How much is it?" Cornered Safia had to admit it was a deposit of 10 gold after completion. Bala and Jian were shocked. Lion added 10 gold you received from Kenny on the condition to keep the Arab incident under wraps. Jian shouted, "No way!" Liang covered his mouth, smirking faintly. Even if it was just a test. Accepting missions, completing them, and even receiving extra pay are all part of the first promotion requirement. A single mission worth over 30 gold has already been completed, hasn't it? Early in the morning, Safia was speechless, seeing the opponent at a disadvantage. Liang declared loudly, "As a level 3 assassin, I request to be promoted to level 4. The whole room fell silent, waiting for a response. Safia tried to calm down, saying firmly, "You're being a bit too arrogant, aren't you?" Liang just smiled in response. "I acknowledge your impressive performance, but aren't you underestimating us? An organization always has its own rules and regulations. In the assassin world, only level 4 assassins and above are truly recognized. Everyone must accumulate experience, hone their skills, be validated by teammates, and take pride in reaching level 4. You've underestimated all of them. Your promotion conditions, while not perfect, can be considered acceptable, but this kind of behavior will only bring dissatisfaction from everyone. No, I'll pretend I didn't hear anything because I'll assume you're tired after the first mission." But Liang was adamant, "No. I won't withdraw my promotion request," Safia threatened. "If you want to live well here, you should know your place a bit." Seeing the tense atmosphere, Jian quickly intervened. "Branch Chief, while it may be a bit excessive as the supervisor, Can I say something? I think Liang is now qualified to participate in the level 4 promotion exam. It's not that he looks down on us, but more importantly, he hasn't demonstrated the most crucial aspect in this exam." "What's the most crucial aspect?" Safia asked curiously. John analyzed, "It's pure physical strength. It's not about planning or calculations, it's about skill. Assassination relies on the physical abilities of an assassin." Bala and Liep thought to themselves, yet they still managed to assassinate successfully. Just with unique strategies, Jian continued, "It's impossible to pass the level 4 promotion exam without physical capability. This is an opportunity to see just how strong Liang really is. With unique strategies, it's impossible to advance to level 4 without the physical ability to seize this opportunity. We'll also find out just how powerful Mr. Long really is. Or maybe you can teach Mr. Lee a bloody lesson." Everyone nodded in agreement, and finally Safia also agreed. "All right, I allow the level up exam. The level 4 exam is something even the assassins have prepared for carefully, but they still have to take a risk." "Have you prepared yourself mentally?" Mr. Lee confidently shook hands with her and replied, "Yes." Safia concluded that night at the car. That evening, they arranged to meet privately. The three of them teased him, saying this guy really knows how to make people's hearts race too hasty already. Balan defended him, saying, he's just speaking well of you. There must be a reason for you to act like that. Safia curiously asked, but you must have a plan, right? Mr. Lee, while drinking milk, replied, the level 4 exam won't happen for at least a month or two. Jiang suggested additional training for him, but Mr. Lee politely declined, saying, I'm going to pass on that, because I plan to rest a bit until then. Jiang was surprised. Rest. Mr. Lee explained, for now I plan to leave G. If I become an official member, I can leave the branch area as well. Isn't that right? I plan to return before the exam. I just need to stop by the branch to confirm the exam details. Isn't that right? Jiang understood. So that's your plan for leaving G this time. Mr. Lee just smiled knowingly. The farewell party was lively. Jiang reminded everyone to drink comfortably but forbade forcing Mr. Lee to drink. Outside, the night was quiet. In stark contrast to the warm atmosphere inside, Mr. Lee felt a bit sad thinking about leaving this place soon. Assassins of level 4 and above will have no time to rest, so he must take advantage of this moment. Thinking of this, Mr. Lee immediately left for the city gate that night. He climbed onto a rocky outcrop to observe his surroundings and ponder the dark land, that deadly territory. From afar, a group of horsemen from the Rose clan was galloping, but knew the commander suddenly ordered them to slow down. They cautiously advanced step by step into the darkness. Suddenly, Knu exclaimed in surprise upon seeing a figure blocking the way. It was Mr. Lee. Because it was dark, Knu shouted, "Who are you?" Mr. Lee pretended to have twisted his ankle sitting on the ground to bandage it, not in a hurry to answer. After a moment, he turned back with an innocent look, making Knu astonished to see it was just a child. Mr. Lee feigned a pitiful expression. "My ankle is twisted. Could you take me to the village ahead, please? I can't walk normally, and if it's dark, I might die in a place like this. So I sat here hoping someone would pass by." Knu suspiciously retorted, "You want to die, huh? You're blocking the noble's path. If we have an urgent public matter, we could be executed without a word." Mr. Lee smirked under his hood and quickly responded. The sound of hooves was steady like that. "If you hear it, it seems you're not in a hurry at all. If it were an urgent public matter, you would have taken the main road, not this one. Are you feeling stiff in the throat?" Mr. Lee clasped his hands, crying and pleading, "Just consider it saving a poor child. Can you help me just this once, please?" Knu felt a pang of sympathy, but immediately tensed upon hearing a noise from the carriage. A commanding voice rang out, "Kenneth, take that child onto the carriage." He quickly protested, "Absolutely not." The person in the carriage changed their mind, saying it was fine to put him on the horse instead. Unable to defy the order, Knu reluctantly let Mr. Lee ride alongside him, and Mr. Lee took the chance to tease the captain, saying it looked quite fitting. Knu asked for his name, to which he replied, "Mr. Lee, I come from Benton, and thanks to a kind young lady I survived." Knu reminded him to be grateful for the luck of meeting her. Mr. Lee smiled brightly, but internally calculated that it was a pity this wasn't luck, but rather a plan from the bloodline. Rose, the one using the rose emblem, trusted Josh to accompany her while checking the route for dangers before setting off, knowing that the Rose family was also traveling the same path. They had lived peacefully in the distant Patroy, but it was said that the head of the family had passed away suddenly, and she had to go into exile as a minor noble from the border, so the escorts were not true knights but former soldiers of the Josh Rose family on the road to exile. It was said that the person had been knighted, and while lost in thought, Mr. Lee accidentally overheard Chaku's curse. "What kind of suffering is the young lady enduring?" But Harrow, standing beside him, nodded in agreement. Those complaints were like a key unlocking Mr. Lie's thoughts about the downfall of the Rose family. Suddenly, Chaku mentioned the Min family with a tone full of resentment, which made everything seem to suddenly point to the Min family regarding this issue. Lion had also investigated this before. But he only murmured to himself that his investigation had only gotten this far. The death of the head of the family and the exile of Sentinos. How was the Min family involved? It seemed as if Knu could read his thoughts and turned to ask his subordinate, "Is that really the Min family's doing?" The young man honestly replied, "I did hear about this. The cunning Min family assassinated the head of the family to cover up the collusion evidence." Mr. Lee couldn't believe his ears. He screamed in his mind. What, that night was a full moon, the soft silver light guiding them through the dense forest. However, after a long, tiring day, the group decided to set up camp to rest. Chaku quickly dismounted to find a spot while the others hurried to cook a pot of hot soup to fill their stomachs. Mr. Lee also took this opportunity to take a quick nap, and a few minutes later he opened his eyes quickly, piecing together all the information he had gathered after interacting with them. The decline of the Rose family was actually a consequence of the fierce dispute between the Jack Min family and the Phantom family, three families of the Min from the Darren kingdom. The Phantom family belonged to the Broy kingdom. These two kingdoms were natural enemies. The tragedy began when the eldest son of the Rose family became a knight of the Min family. He perished due to a monster attack while on patrol in the Darklands. To commemorate and compensate, the Min family promised to provide substantial aid to the Rose family. This caused dissatisfaction for the Anani family, another noble family that had always competed with the Roses, seeing their rival rise thanks to the Min's support. The Anani family secretly contacted the Phantom family, using the conflict between the two great families as a cover. They hired someone to assassinate the head of the Rose family, but in reality, the Rose family is quietly assisting the Min family in this dispute. To cover up the evidence and turn the tide, the opposing faction fabricated and spread rumors that the Min family had assassinated the head of the Rose family to eliminate all three branches of the Rose family. After discovering the truth that the death of their loved one was incited by the Anani family, they tried to resist, but against the colossal power of Phantom, who had solidified their position due to Jack Min's weakening, their efforts were in vain. All attempts became hopeless as the three branches of the Rose family fell. The head of the family quickly declined and was forced to flee to the Duke, the only one who knew all the internal matters, which was Miss Rose, as she departed. Only Knu remained, who had just been knighted, along with a few loyal attendants he hastily gathered. This path of exile would surely be fraught with thorns, while the head was lost in thought. Rose, inside the carriage, had fallen into a deep sleep from exhaustion. To ensure safety, Knu stationed guards strictly outside the master's tent, while he sat by the fire continuously discussing the political situation with everyone, especially the covetous gaze that the Anani family's second son directed at Miss Rose. The issue did not lie with the Min family, but rather with the Anani family. In reality, this exile could only proceed smoothly, because the Min family had obtained a travel permit from the Darren kingdom. While the head was eating and listening intently, Knu, with a worried expression, noted that the Min family had exhausted their remaining resources to support them. As soon as he finished speaking, Chaku eagerly invited Knu to drink, raising a toast for the Min family, and he didn't forget to scoop more soup for the little one, asking if he wanted him to scoop another 8 pieces. The boy politely replied, "Yes, please." Chaku chuckled. "You must be a bit bored, huh? This has nothing to do with you." Lai responded cheerfully, hiding the calculations in his heart, pretending to be happy. However, internally he was in turmoil. They indeed had a deep connection with the Min family. Noticing that everyone was not on guard against him, Lee decided to probe further. "But would it be okay? You brought a kid like me along during the exile, and now I'm hearing all this." Before he could finish, Chaku interjected teasingly, "After blocking the way, you still ask for help?" Teased Lai turned away, smiling wryly. Gon thought he was scared of Nu and quickly reassured him, "It's okay, Captain. Nu seems much more relaxed after letting it all out." Chaku agreed. "Yeah, but the one suffering the most is Miss Sentenzos." Lion silently acknowledged this in his heart. The real issue lies with Zos Nu and the other knights. They are still too inexperienced to recognize the severity of this chain of events. Just like the dangers lurking right before their eyes, the 3 branches of the Anani family allied with the Phaetons would never be satisfied with the death of the Rose family head. Especially the second son of the Anani family, who not yet 20, had already sent 3 assassination requests to the council. Indeed, that scoundrel. I refused because there was no profit in doing so, but he is the kind of cruel person who preys on the weak and the poor, yet he protects himself meticulously, making it extremely difficult to assassinate him. If someone like that targets Center Joe, this is not the time to comfortably set up camp and rest. Just then, Lai's keen senses detected. He discovered a stalker hiding nearby. Knowing he had been exposed, the person immediately fled. Lai stealthily followed the shadow of the opponent, telling himself, "So they have been tailing us. Should I deal with them now? No, considering their numbers and route, the news has surely been sent out already. The most effective thing now is to set a trap to slow down their pursuit." Thinking quickly, Lai pretended to go to the bathroom to scout and act. When he returned, his clothes were covered in dirt. Chaku saw this and immediately asked, "Why are you all dirty like that?" You pretended to be confused, scratching your head, and replied, "I fell while using the restroom." Gon, worried, ordered, "If you're hurt, you should ask for help. You should rest here." In fact, Mr. Long had already set up traps. You thought to yourself that you had placed enough traps along the way to hinder the pursuers, and you had gathered the necessary information. Your connection with them only lasts until the next town, so consider it a payment of 8 shu. Early the next morning, as the sun rose high, the group hurriedly packed their belongings. It was time for Mr. Long to part ways. Before leaving, you didn't forget to express your gratitude. Thank you for letting me hitch a ride. You asked about your plan, and the destination for you was the village of Horned Deer, just like a child like you heading to a village near the shadowy region. What for? Mr. Long fabricated a reasonable excuse. I'm a trader looking to buy monster materials in Horned Deer to sell in Penton. You waved goodbye to your father, saying, I must leave from here. I guess this is where we say goodbye. After that, he handed Mr. Long a vial of medicine, catching you by surprise. And take this. You're not fully recovered yet, so keep this medicine with you. The lady instructed me to give this to you. You received the vial and asked, what about the lady? Rose was sitting inside the carriage, looking out through the window, but remained silent. You replied on her behalf, thanks to her we managed to find a moment of peace. You truly felt grateful, even though you found Knu's cryptic words hard to understand. Mr. Long bowed his head and said, well, I'm off now. Knu suddenly warned seriously, we're going to live on the continent from now on, so if you ever need help, even if I do, don't look for me. Gon knew Knu's temperament, so he laughed heartily. The captain may seem defeated on the surface, but that's all there is to it. He's a good guy, Chaku chimed in. Even if you don't ask him, he'll find a way to help you. It's just that he speaks too bluntly. Knu snapped, clearly annoyed. Aren't you leaving soon? Mr. Long watched as the convoy gradually disappeared. He looked at the vial of medicine in his hand and sighed, feeling a sense of unease rise in his heart. Out of curiosity, he opened the cap and drank it all in one go, accidentally spilling a few drops on the ground right after. His attention was drawn by the sound of galloping hooves coming from the opposite direction. Turning around, Mr. Long saw a group of people urging their horses to run for their lives. They rushed towards him in an instant. Recognizing the opponent, Mr. Long pretended to look worried and stepped aside, but inside he was analyzing coldly. There were 6 of them in the pursuing team. Among them, 2 were just ordinary mercenaries, 2 were novice swordsmen, and 1 was a wizard. The last one wearing a hood was definitely a nobleman. He was the second son of the Anani Garuta family. Upon arriving, Garuta removed the cloth covering his face, revealing a crazed, battle-hungry expression. He urged his horse past Mr. Long without paying any attention to a child by the roadside. Only after Garuta had disappeared did Mr. Long glance after their retreating figures, his gaze turning sharp. However, the skills of the pursuing team were higher than expected. It seemed that the plan to use traps to delay them had failed. It was a bit too much for an 8 shu, and he had even consumed a vial of medicine. Mr. Long looked at the empty vial in his hand, startled and speechless. He realized its true value. High-grade medicine like this was worth over 20 silver coins per vial. Suddenly, Mr. Long burst into laughter, feeling like he had just consumed something far too extravagant. You think about Rose mumbling to yourself, giving this to a child who just helped for the night, not knowing what kind of person she is. You have to live with the escape while still thinking of others. Rose's kindness makes it impossible for you to ignore the Rose household. There's no way out. They'll kidnap Center and deal with the rest. It's too much for the upcoming 8th task, but if you add in the potion as a sort of advance payment, it's manageable. You remember the magical formation you set up, calculating if you can catch up with the horse. It might cause more casualties, so perhaps I'll ask you to help with this part. That's your first mission, and it's cruel. After deciding, I summon my monster to join the fight while the Rose family continues their arduous journey. The sound of hooves thundered from behind, and Nu turned around, his face changing as he sensed danger approaching. He immediately ordered, "We need to speed up, hurry." Harrow looked confused. Nu quickly reported into the carriage. "Miss, we're going to speed up a bit. Please bear with the bumps." A soldier named Eric wondered, "Commander, why the sudden change?" Nu shouted loudly, his voice echoing through the forest. "There are pursuers! Someone with magic is right behind us!" He pointed ahead, giving a firm command. "The border is just up ahead. Hurry up, Cha and Gon. If they catch up, you two take the lady straight to the border. Once we reach the border, Anani won't be able to do anything. They won't dare touch the lady if it risks a conflict with Darren's guards. Go now, I'll buy us some time." With that, Nu turned the horse back towards the enemy. Chaku and Gon shouted. Commander Gon called after him, "Let's meet again down below." Nu sighed, mocking himself inwardly. "Anani's engineers are nothing compared to me. I might have been lucky to be called an engineer, but I am the engineer of the Rose family. 3 cavalry units from Anani charged like a storm. Seeing someone blocking their path, Garuta looked tense but didn't slow down. Nu drew his sword, shouting fiercely, "Stop! Who are you to chase after the Rose family's carriage? Withdraw immediately or I won't hold back." Garuta laughed mockingly. "Handle you, really?" He jumped off his horse, looking down at Nu with disdain. "You think being knighted makes you impressive?" After saying that, Garuta removed his headscarf. Nu gasped in horror. "Garuta Anani!" The subordinate Theodo worriedly reminded his master of his identity, but Garuta brushed it off coldly. "Either way, apart from the news, they all have to die, right?" "Capture that woman before she reaches the border," Ba Tiu ordered. "Yes, sir." He led the troops past Knu as if he were invisible. Nu panicked and raised his sword. "What are you planning?" But he felt utterly powerless as he watched them pass. Among them was a mage, possibly a high-level one. Before he could recover, Nu was severely injured and coughed up blood on the spot. Garuta laughed heartily. "Calm down, a knight from Feta will deal with your opponent, but you will die here anyway." From among the soldiers, a familiar figure stepped out. Nu stared wide-eyed at him. "Commander Siso, why is the former commander of the Zhou family here?" Garuta answered for him. "Why? Oh, for money, of course. The Zhou family has disappeared. Do I have to wait to starve? It's been a long time since I've had such entertainment. Let's make it worthwhile." Siso threw down his helmet and charged at Nu, swinging his sword mercilessly. Nu, while blocking the blows, painfully asked, "Don't you have any knightly spirit left?" Siso replied nonchalantly, "Times have changed. Ken Venture no longer resembles a true knight." After a while of fighting, Siso urged him to give up. "I heard there's going to be a war. With your abilities, it's still not too late to switch sides." Nu firmly refused. "Don't talk nonsense. You know I can't be swayed." Garuta gritted his teeth and ordered, "Finish this quickly. I'm sure the news has been captured already." Siso sighed. "I'm sorry." He raised his sword, ready to finish Nu off, but at that moment he was unexpectedly ambushed from behind and fell to the ground. He stared wide-eyed. "What the hell, which bastard?" Siso shouted, and immediately the demon appeared, wearing a sinister smile full of hidden meaning. Siso fumed, "How dare you not answer?" The demon launched a second attack, accompanied by a terrifying magical explosion. The mage accompanying the Anani group hurriedly raised a mana shield, but was still thrown back by the shockwave. "I barely managed to raise the mana shield, but this is an extremely powerful foe." Siso was hit by the magical attack and coughed up blood from a distance. He observed through the connection with the demon, "That monkey tongue. Payback Ba." Ahead, the Rose family's carriage had been overturned, blood and bodies scattered everywhere. The horse pulling the carriage was dead, and only Chaku and Gon struggled to hold on despite their injuries. The gratitude is owed. Ahead, the Rose family's carriage has been overturned, blood and bodies scattered everywhere. The horse pulling the carriage is dead, and only Chaku and Gon are trying to hold on despite their injuries. Their opponent is too strong everywhere. My twin brother Theodoro enjoys playing cat and mouse, trying to resist for the title of knight. Theodoro spat out insults. "Is it a hassle to cut you down? Why don't you just disappear quietly?" "With our forces, we only need to be close to the level of a beginner swordsman." "You have no chance from within the ruins." A weak voice from the beard said, "Please stop," as she stepped out gripping a dagger tightly. Everyone has endured quite well until now. Bongon shouted to stop the young lady. "If you step out, Rose Footler will make one last offer. I will follow you. Please spare them or I will die too. Your master surely wouldn't want that to happen, right?" She pressed the knife to her throat, her gaze resolute, secretly assessing that woman. The last remaining blood of the Rose family saw Zos Theodoro's determination and hesitated slightly, Sentin Zos, but quickly changed his tone. "It seems you are misunderstanding a few things. Because you haven't reached Darren yet, you are neither a noble nor anything else." That statement struck a chord, making the beard tremble, lowering the knife. Seeing the opportunity, Theodoro signaled, meaning, "We have no reason to listen to you." Nathan immediately lunged forward, grabbing the beard's hair and yanking it back, laughing, "Let me show you what will happen next." When facing a knight who can control mana, Liang Gon screamed in despair. The young lady had no strength to resist. Rose closed her eyes, waiting for death. A figure dashed in like lightning, delivering a thunderous kick that sent Nathan flying, causing him to spit blood. Immediately, Rose opened her eyes in shock, looking at the person who just saved her, Liang. Angrily, she shouted, "Who are you?" Leong skillfully snatched the knife from Nathan, twirling it lightly in his hand, and casually said, "Ah, I intended to use this to settle the remaining medical bills with such a pathetic opponent, and there's still quite a bit left. Let's consider the medicine and soup as a deposit." Commissioning an assassin, Mayon Lion Rose was bewildered. Martin the assassin pulled down his mask, surprised. "Why are Martin's people here? Why are you helping the Rose family?" But Rose suddenly remembered something. She thought to herself, if it cools down, then the direct descendants of the An family. She didn't hesitate to shout, 30 gold coins, Leong smirked. "You have a good eye for the times." But he shook his head. "Not enough. 30 coins are only enough to deal with the knight standing in front of you." The second son of the Anani family, former commander of the Rose family knights, and a third-rate mage, that's too little to handle the whole situation. Theodoro cursed, "Damn this guy." Leong ignored him and turned to urge Rose, "You'd better speak quickly. If the commission isn't finalized, I have no reason to stay here." Rose bit her lip, struggling with her thoughts fiercely. "If Leong leaves, everything will end." She lowered her head, her voice trembling but determined. "Everything you want?" Leong stared at her, waiting. "All right, I accept." Instantly, Lion's eyes flared with killing intent. Theodoro still looked down on this bastard. Even as an assassin daring to show his face, Leong raised the knife, his tone cold. "They say assassins shouldn't reveal their identities, but that's just the talk of cowardly people with petty ambitions." A true assassin, thanks to magic support, Leong threw the knife at an unimaginable speed, embedding it straight into Theodoro, causing him to collapse, screaming in pain. Leong was confident he wouldn't make a mistake, so even if he revealed his face, he could still be assured. Rose was still in shock. Leong glanced at her silently, setting his target. This was his first official mission. As an assassin, where the payment is all the assets of the Rose family, I must create a reputation worthy of it. Theodoro struggled to get up. "Don't talk nonsense. Do you think those of us who just entered swordsmanship will easily fall?" Leong replied with an enigmatic smile. "We won't be long before Nathan turns back, grabbing the sword and rushing to die." The sword slashed into thin air. Because Leong had moved at breakneck speed, Nathan panicked, calling out to his brother, "How much longer are you going to lie there? The opponent is the assassin Matea from the Sand family. Don't be careless." 1. Theodoro, suppressing pain, picked up the sword. "You chose wrong when accepting the commission from the Rose family. With our perfect sibling position-switching technique, we will make you regret that decision." Did you really just smile so brightly? You activated a series of domination skills, accelerating your body, making you glide like a ghost, moving faster than normal by many times. The two brothers, Theodore and Nathan, kept missing their hits and started to panic. Theodore gritted his teeth. "Illusions or magic techniques, but I don't sense any magical flow at all. 4 of you circled around surrounding the two enemies until you found their weak point. You coldly declared, 'It's too late now.'" A slap to the back made Theodore scream. He turned to scold Nathan. "Stop hitting randomly. We need to coordinate our counterattack at the right moment." You replied from nowhere, "It's too late. Because I've activated the skill to weaken your physical form, destroy and disrupt your hearing, you are engulfed in extreme terror. A cursed skill? You even possess the abilities of a soul master." Without giving him a chance to think further, Lion unleashed a finishing blow, blood spraying into the air, intensifying Lion's magic. He whispered into their ears like death itself, "Feel the pain of the wronged souls from the Rose D clan." The battle ended as dusk fell, leaving the Rose caravan in ruins with only 2 horses remaining. Gnu's face returned to a tattered state, but his eyes still sparkled with joy upon seeing everyone safe. "Miss, is everyone okay?" Rose sobbed. "Gnu, you're really okay, what a relief." Gnu sighed in relief when he saw his brother was still alive. Gnu turned to ask Gon and Chaku, "Is Dad okay too?" But Gon, still in shock, asked back, "Could it really be you who defeated the pursuers?" Gnu glared at him. "Do I look that miserable?" Gon quickly waved his hand. "No, I meant..." Gnu recounted the truth. "I received unexpected help from a wizard who killed the traitor and captured the wizard and that guru." All eyes turned to Lion. With suspicion and astonishment, Lion didn't explain much. He summoned the demon that appeared right before everyone, a magic circle materializing. Guruta Anani was thrown out from there. He screamed in utter panic, witnessing the horrifying display just now. Gnu turned to ask, his eyes still wide with shock, "You're Lion, right?" "Why did you—" Rose quickly answered for him, her tone mixed with admiration for the kid who claimed to be that demon's assassin. But Gnu couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment, "Really? Although surprised as he pieced everything together, he gradually believed in this teenager's identity as an assassin. Looking at the humiliated wizard, he thought to himself, serves him right. Hearing the name Martin Garuta made him feel a bit of fear. Martin, however, survival instincts kicked in. The guy tried to bargain for his life. If you spare me, I'll pay double what they promised. It seems your Sentinel House has washed its hands of the trickery, but the principle of assassination is to only accept gold from clients, not humans, right? However, the guy's words only irritated you further. You coldly cast a spell, saying succinctly, too noisy. Immediately, Guruta's body was torn in half. The screams of pain echoed and then faded in the rain of blood. After finishing the target, you sighed in relief, your tone dripping with disdain. You just need to pay right. Do you dare to see me as a lowly assassin? Turning to Joe, you began calculating the payment. Miss, do you remember what Joe promised as a reward? I will never forgive anyone who breaks their word. You should understand what the path of an assassin is like by now. Rose broke into a cold sweat and quickly replied, of course. Surprisingly, Mr. Lee changed his tone, becoming gentler. I won't ask for it right now. I understand the Rose family's situation at the moment. Seeing him hesitate, Rose grew more anxious, but that unease quickly faded when Lion continued. If you can officially submit a payment request for 30 gold to Martin, I would greatly appreciate it. The rest can be considered a verbal agreement between us. Although she didn't fully grasp Lion's intentions, Rose nodded in agreement. Once the agreement was settled, Mr. Lee began guiding her through the next steps. Now stabilize your mind and continue your journey. There won't be anyone chasing after you anymore. Matea will handle the corpse after you leave. If the border guards ask, just say you were attacked by robbers and it will be fine. The thoughtful advice left Gon and Chaku feeling puzzled, but they smiled and responded nonetheless. Nu silently admired the professionalism with which he handled everything. Seeing Mr. Lee turn to leave, Nu quickly called out regretfully, Mr. Lee. He turned back, smiled, and then cast a spell slowly rising into the air with just a gentle snap of his fingers. Mr. Lie's figure vanished into thin air. Gon couldn't believe his eyes and exclaimed, he disappeared. Once he was out of sight, Nu turned to express his doubts to Joe. A magic assassin. Perhaps that's not the whole truth. The cryptic statement left her bewildered. Nu recalled the monster that devoured everything full of questions. Mr. Lee claimed to be an assassin, but the creature he summoned was no ordinary type. The image of the battle vividly replayed in his mind. From the way the monster used magic to create an explosion to how Mr. Lee summoned it, everything surpassed the usual rules of magic. He murmured, they even know how to talk, albeit briefly. He couldn't forget that creature's smug smile after it eliminated its enemies. Remembering the soldiers and the wizard being taken down in the blink of an eye, Nu solemnly remarked, moreover, it took down both the soldiers and the wizard. Hearing that, Rose's face turned pale as Nu continued to speculate, linking it to an ancient legend, then asserting to everyone, the legendary wizard Veda, perhaps he is his disciple. Rose couldn't hide her panic and shouted, Veda, you mean he's also a soul master like Veda? Nu seriously analyzed, a being from Andes just defeated a wizard in 3 rounds and a novice swordsman, and he even cast spells. Such beings are not rare in the Andes. But this is clearly a creature of a different level. Gon turned and whispered half-jokingly, Mr. Lee is Veda's disciple, you know. In contrast to that playful tone, Chaku appeared tense. If that's true, the consequences will be extremely serious. Since we can't verify it, Rose ordered everyone to keep this matter strictly confidential. Everyone must keep today's events a secret. I don't mean the death of our guru. His death should spread as widely as possible. Nu still didn't fully understand the implications and hesitantly asked, so what does that mean, miss? Rose quickly interrupted, her voice firm. You saving us was just a sentimental assassin fulfilling a mission for the price of a bowl of soup and a potion. If he truly is the inheritor of the legendary wizard Veda, the information we must conceal is about Mr. Lee. Her command sent shivers down everyone's spines. Nu silently noted the change in his master's demeanor. Unlike the young lady who left the city, her gaze now lacked the hopelessness of a displaced person who had lost everything. After a moment, Rose gently asked, Nu, can you still move? He immediately replied, yes, I can. Here? Rose entrusted him with an important mission. I know it's difficult, but you must return to Penton and officially accept the assassination mission for Matea. As Mr. Long said, just hire someone to kill Karuta. Don't worry about her safety. I don't intend to oppose, but if I leave now, Rose has already reassured me, trusting Lord Lai, that we won't be ambushed anymore. Right now, being on guard is pointless, so let's do everything we can together. We will definitely stand firm in the Darren Kingdom for the revival of the Rose family. Zhou's bold declaration left Gon and Chaku deep in thought, while Knu also had a lot to ponder. Meanwhile, in a desolate mountain range, as night fell, Li was walking when he stumbled upon a skull rolling about. He felt no fear, only letting out a soft sigh as he stood atop the mountain. Li gazed ahead, calculating the next leg of the journey. It would take half a day to cross the village, right? Finally, he had arrived at the starting point of the Dark Realm Level 12. A knowing smile appeared on his face.